Chapter 161. Unlike others who anticipated and yearned for fortuitous encounters, Shen Xingyan only wished to safely spend a week here. After all, no matter how amazing a fortuitous encounter was, it couldn't compare to the value of what he gained from breaking records daily. With his current weak attributes, there was indeed no need for him to put himself in danger. He participated in this trial for two reasons. Firstly, he didn't want his unusual decisions to attract too much attention. Secondly, he wanted to thoroughly understand this extraterritorial world, paving the way for future expeditions to eliminate disasters. After everyone gathered under the guidance of the surrounding personnel, the general person in charge of the safety zone began to announce the rules. Later, you will each be assigned your respective cultivation spots, but here I want to emphasize one point. Any fighting is strictly prohibited within the safety zone. I don't care what grudges you have between yourselves, but once you are here, you must put them aside. In the extraterritorial world, our common enemy is those damned disasters, so do not let me see anything that is detrimental to the unity of the human race. As the general person in charge spoke, a flying sword suddenly hovered beside him, emitting a chilling light that made onlookers feel a biting cold, and at the same time, a wave of deathly aura instantly enveloped everyone present. This scene instantly silenced the previously murmuring group. This person is actually a high-level swordsman professional. No wonder he speaks with such natural authority. He truly has the capital for it. Those Central District trial participants who had previously appeared arrogant now also became serious after seeing the hovering flying sword, thinking silently to themselves. The feeling this general person in charge gave them was as if he wasn't just talking idly. Among the crowd, Shen Xingyan's face showed a faint smile after hearing the person in charge's words. With the person in charge's words, people like Song Jai wouldn't dare to openly make overly aggressive moves against me, which invisibly reduces some small troubles for me. For combat professionists like Song Jai, although his true strength is definitely superior to theirs, he cannot expose it too much. If he truly encounters such incidents, he would inevitably be somewhat constrained. After all, he was currently just a humble farmer. The other party, relying on the rapid improvements of combat professionist over the past month, had a high possibility of provoking him. And now, as long as he didn't leave the base, there was a high probability that such incidents wouldn't occur. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Song Jai and the others standing at the front. And Song Jai, upon hearing these words, also turned his head unwillingly towards Shen Xingyan's direction. Their gazes collided in the air. Shen Xingyan had a calm expression, while Song Jai angrily mouthed words, probably meaning, "You better not go out or else you'll regret it." Shen Xingyan chose to ignore him. If it were in the past, he might have considered him a formidable opponent. But now, he felt nothing towards such clownish behavior. He thought with some emotion, this must be the mindset that comes with a disparity in strength, and this gap will only grow wider in the future. Thinking this, Shen Xingyan no longer dwelled on this small interlude. I will emphasize this point. Once the positions are assigned, the trial will officially begin. The trial ends in 1 week, and only then can you return to the base. Do you understand? The swordsman person in charge said loudly. With the previous deterrence, everyone responded very obediently. Subsequently, the other person in charges around them assigned Shen Xingyan and the others to their respective positions according to their names, and even thoughtfully provided tents. After Shen Xingyan set it up, he went inside to observe and found that, although the space was not large, it was enough for him to move around a bit. Moreover, it didn't hinder his power of equilibrium training, which was no longer limited to fixed movements. Just as he had finished setting up his things, Chu Wai walked over and asked, "Do you want to go out and take a look with our team? It's the first day, so we'll just wander around nearby and not explore too deeply. Safety can still be guaranteed." Shen Xingyan was somewhat tempted by the offer, but considering his own situation, he gently shook his head. "No, I won't be a burden. You all be careful when you go out. I'll just go out and see the world a bit later." Seeing Shen Xingyan so steady, Chu Wai felt much more at ease. Then, the two slowly walked towards the outside of the safety zone. Shen Xingyan saw that Chu Wai's team members were already assembled, so he didn't follow and watch them leave. It's such a pity. Such a motivated person before, yet he awakened a life skill. A warrior professional in Chu Wai's team side when he saw Shen Xingyan. Shut up, pay attention to your surroundings. Chu Wai, now with a cold expression, softly reprimanded. She didn't want to hear anyone make unwarranted comments about Shen Xingyan. The warrior professional immediately shut his mouth upon hearing this. Knowing their relationship, he realized he had spoken out of turn. The accompanying young priestess also nudged the warrior professional, then started chatting playfully with Chu Wai. After Shen Xingyan watched Chu Wai and her team leave, he found a hidden corner, took out a broken staff he had bought casually before, circulated the primordial energy within his body, and silently chanted to use the clone technique. As steady as he was, he intended to let a clone check the surrounding environment for him. This way, even if he encountered danger, it would only be the loss of a small clone. 2 hours would be enough time for the clone to travel some distance, and perhaps even find something good. As the amalgamation of primordial energy and consciousness detached from the staff, the clone's form began to condense. Shen Xingyan looked at the clone forming a human shape in front of him and couldn't help but think. It would be great if the clone could directly condense into a smaller animal or a blade of grass. That way, its body would be smaller, making it easier to explore. However, just as Shen Xingyan was thinking this, the clone that was forming a human shape in front of him suddenly disappeared. This change made Shen Xingyan pause, thinking that his random thoughts had caused the skill to fail. Just as he was about to take out his star origin card to check the specific situation, he suddenly felt another perspective appear in his mind. Based on this perspective, he abruptly looked down at his feet. At this moment, he saw a slightly larger ant looking up at him from beneath his feet, and its perspective was identical to the one in his mind. Chapter 162. So the clone technique can not only change one's human appearance, but also transform into any form one desires. This is truly amazing. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but exclaim after understanding the current situation. He then squatted down, gently took the ant clone into his hand, and felt it. He found that its outer shell was still hard, and overall, it had a good feel to it. If one didn't examine it closely, they wouldn't find many clues. This greatly enhances the clone's concealment, especially in this extraterritorial world, where disasters are everywhere. Its safety has also increased. Seeing this, Shen Xingyan nodded in satisfaction. This was his first time summoning a clone in the real world, and he instinctively wanted to check its attributes. However, this was the real world, not like the star origin world, where there was a function to check attributes, so he could only suppress this thought. I wonder if the clone's attributes will be affected after it shrinks. After his initial surprise, Shen Xingyan experimentally had the small ant move at full speed into the distance, wanting to see if its attributes were affected by its size. The ant clone, upon receiving Shen Xingyan's command, immediately moved at a speed completely disproportionate to its size. Its tiny form almost instantly disappeared from Shen Xingyan's sight. Through dual perspective observation, Shen Xingyan also discovered that the clone's movement speed was almost identical to his own speed when it was 10. This also confirmed to him that the clone's appearance would not affect the performance of its physical attributes, which put his mind at ease. After this discovery, Shen Xingyan let the clone freely explore the surrounding environment while he returned to the safety zone, entered his tent, and began to train his power of balance while observing through the dual perspective. At this current time, whether it was the Central District or the Northern District's trial students, everyone was filled with curiosity about their surroundings, having just arrived. Coupled with the allure of the mysterious final reward, aside from some safety zone personnel in charge and a few life skill professionals, everyone else rushed out, making the entire safety zone seem particularly deserted. And among the already small number of remaining people, Those like Shen Xingyan, who directly began training inside their tents, were an even smaller minority. At this moment, although Shen Xingyan was in a state of training, his mind was focused on the ant clone. With a wisp of consciousness injected into the clone, he could easily control its actions. And with the visual feedback in his mind, it felt as if he was freely galloping in the extraterritorial world. After more than an hour, Shen Xingyan's power of balance had increased to 45%. However, his clone, which was exploring the surrounding environment, had no additional gains, causing his main body, currently training, to shake his head. It seems this area has been mostly cleared. There's nothing worthwhile to be seen. I did see quite a few disasters that were explained in books, but unfortunately, the clone's strength isn't enough right now. Otherwise, I would have killed them all. Shen Xingyan thought, originally expecting the rest of the time to pass peacefully like this. But at this moment, the other side's clone, the small ant, encountered a minor problem. At this moment, standing in front of the clone was a frog, enormous in comparison to the ant clone. From the small ant's perspective, Shen Xingyan saw it as a colossal frog. That majestic feeling gave him a sense of déjà vu, like a frog god. However, Shen Xingyan, who was well aware of its attributes, felt no fear at all. According to the data, the highest agility attribute of such a frog god was only about 8 to 9 points, not to mention its other attributes. For the ant clone, whose all attributes were 10 points, even if it took the opponent's full force attack, it would not suffer any damage at all. Upon discovering the ant clone, the frog god quickly extended its giant tongue without any hesitation, instantly swallowing the ant clone into its belly. Shen Xingyan, realizing this situation, not only did not panic, but even enjoyed the scene inside the frog's belly with great interest. Viewing it from the ant's perspective, the inside was vast and magnificent. What should have been a pitch-black mass of internal organs, due to consuming some self-luminous objects, caused the entire internal outline to vaguely appear before Shen Xingyan's eyes. It also broadened Shen Xingyan's horizons. Afterward, he no longer hid, directly changing his consciousness into a small human form more suitable for combat. Then, he directly punched the frog's internal organs, causing it to feel immense pain, and its entire body began to shake irregularly. Seeing this, Shen Xingyan naturally didn't hold back, and after several consecutive punches from the clone, he successfully broke open the frog's belly. The clone, seeing the dying frog god again under the open sky, gently shook his head and delivered the final punch. As the clone's punch landed, the frog was no longer tormented by pain and completely stopped moving. The clone then prepared to transform back into an ant and leave. However, at this moment, a faint wisp of Kai slowly floated out from within the frog's body. Shen Xingyan, seeing this scene for the first time, was slightly stunned for a moment, then had the clone approach to see what was happening. But as soon as the clone got close, this wisp of Kai directly merged into the clone's body. Shen Xingyan, who hadn't had time to study it, combined the current situation and couldn't help but speculate. Is this what the data describes as the substance that promotes primordial energy growth after killing a disaster? But didn't the data say they were all formless? Why, when it comes to the clone, can it not only be seen but also absorbed by the clone? That's a bit strange. Is it because the clone is a special existence composed of primordial energy? Shen Xingyan had learned about this in school before. The stronger the disaster killed by the human race, the more primordial energy it would boost for the individual. For a rank like the frog god, its primordial energy boost was negligible. Conversely, in the eyes of disasters, every human race seemed like a great tonic, which led to the formation of an irreconcilable situation between the two sides. And now, since the clone could absorb such a wisp of Kai, would there be any different situations afterward? This thought immediately made Shen Xingyan excited. He then no longer avoided those insignificant small disasters, but actively began to search for them. In this vast area, after being cleared by advanced professionals, there were basically not many powerful disasters left. Shen Xingyan, who had thoroughly read the disaster data, was also clear about the general attributes of the disasters he encountered. To investigate the subsequent situation of the clone, he simply sought out small disasters similar to the frog god to fight. Chapter 163. Under Shen Xingyan's gaze, it wasn't long before the clone encountered another frog god that had slipped through the net. This time, the conscious clone, without Shen Xingyan's command, actively went to meet it. Under the crushing power of its attributes, in less than a minute, the frog god collapsed to the ground, its large eyes seemingly conveying its confusion. It probably couldn't understand, until its death, why a small ant suddenly changed into another form and became an invincible existence, and why its own attacks had no effect on the tiny opponent. Meanwhile, the clone focused on the wisp of gas that reappeared, but this time, at Shen Xingyan's instruction, it did not approach, but observed carefully from a distance. The wisp of gas floated quietly above the frog god's corpse, showing no intention of leaving. Shen Xingyan had the clone observe from a distance for a while longer, but detected no other anomalies. Seeing this, he pondered quietly. From the clone's perspective, as time passed, the wisp of gas began to become faint, almost on the verge of dissipating. Upon seeing this, Shen Xingyan had the clone walk over and automatically absorb it. After the observation and analysis just now, Shen Xingyan's heart was filled with certainty. It seems it's just as I thought. This visible wisp of gas is the origin mentioned in the books, something that can increase a professional's primordial energy limit. I just don't know what purpose it serves for the clone to absorb these origins. I can only let the clone kill more minor disasters and collect more to see what changes will occur later. Thinking this, Shen Xingyan let the clone with its own consciousness begin to independently search for and kill disasters, while he himself exercised and quietly observed. After nearly an hour passed, Shen Xingyan saw that the power of balance's progress had reached 49.3%, and he knew that the clone's 2-hour existence time was about to end. At this moment, his hands did not stop, but his mental attention shifted to the clone's perspective. And at this time, after such a period of searching and slaughter, those disasters that slipped through the net, which were insignificant in the eyes of others, became the clone's primary targets for killing. Nearly 30 minor disasters died in a muddled state at the clone's hands. During this period, the clone naturally encountered some disasters that had higher attributes according to the data. But under the clone's concealed physique, it safely avoided them all. After all, in the eyes of those high-attribute disasters or professionals, such a tiny, extremely difficult-to-detect thing, even if seen, was not worth specifically targeting. It was too time-consuming. This made Shen Xingyan, who noticed this phenomenon, sigh with emotion. The extraterritorial world is truly the clone's paradise. As Shen Xingyan sighed, time slowly approached. However, just as Shen Xingyan thought the clone's existence time was about to end and it would dissipate on its own, a strange thing happened. The clone, which should have dissipated, was still happily killing minor disasters with lower attributes than itself, showing no signs of dissipating at all. This made Shen Xingyan, who gradually realized something was wrong, react with eyes full of disbelief. Noticing this situation, Shen Xingyan stopped his movements in surprise and subconsciously muttered to himself, "What's going on? Hasn't the 2-hour existence time already passed? Why hasn't the clone dissipated on its own? It's still killing disasters. This isn't right." Shen Xingyan's heart was filled with question marks at this moment, and his mind began to recall the special circumstances that had occurred since he used clone technique until now. The first was naturally the change in body size, which he did not consider to be the cause of the influence, after all. It was just a change in form, but its attributes had not changed at all, belonging to a unique function of the clone technique. Then the reason must be the second one, the existence of that wisp of origin. The clone is composed of primordial energy, and origin is something that can increase a professional's primordial energy limit. If these two are superimposed, could that be the reason why the clone hasn't disappeared even after its time is up? Shen Xingyan thought speculatively, and slowly his eyes began to grow brighter. If that's truly the case, then as long as my clone continuously kills disasters and acquires these wisps of special gas, couldn't it exist indefinitely? The more he thought about it, the more plausible this conjecture seemed, and Shen Xingyan couldn't help but clench his fist tightly, a look of excitement appearing on his face. His consciousness watched the clone's perspective in his mind, and a smile instantly spread across his entire face. However, after being excited for a while, Shen Xingyan slowly calmed down. He admonished himself to be calm. Everything is still just a conjecture at this stage. It cannot be confirmed until the very end. What I can do now is wait and see, be steady, and compose myself. Shen Xingyan repeatedly admonished himself in his heart, while simultaneously resuming his power of balance training, trying to suppress his somewhat runaway thoughts. But he still occasionally checked the clone's perspective. Although his emotions slowly calmed down with the passage of time, his smile could not be stopped. It wasn't until nearly 3 in the afternoon, when the comprehension skill was about to cool down, that Shen Xingyan finally stopped his movements. At this moment, the clone's perspective in his mind was still present, proving that the clone still existed, which made Shen Xingyan's idea even clearer. The clone has existed for nearly 5 hours and shows no sign of dissipating. So, once the clone skill's cooldown is complete, will I be able to summon a second clone? Thinking of this, Shen Xingyan took out his star origin card and saw the clone technique with 5 hours of cooldown remaining on the attribute panel. And his heart began to fill with anticipation. I hope it's truly as I imagine, allowing me to eliminate disasters without risk. As my primordial energy attributes get higher and higher in the future, and the clone's attributes become stronger and stronger, I can gradually eliminate all disasters in the future. Please don't let a new one be summoned while the previous one automatically dissipates. Luck value, bless me. Luck value, bless me. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but pray in his heart, then looked at the power of balance. Its progress had already reached 63.5%, and it would definitely level up today. He then quickly took out some food from his storage space, sat down to replenish his stamina, while his attention was on the clone's perspective. With the scene of killing disasters as a backdrop, he ate the energy-replenishing food with great relish. Chapter 164. Shen Xingyan's clone, unconstrained by stamina like the little skeleton, was like a fish in the ocean in the safe environment of the extraterritorial world. He continuously sought out and eliminated minor disasters, and if he encountered a strong one, he would immediately flee. He deceived a multitude of disasters with his weak appearance. Compared to those combat professional teams who walked with extreme caution, the clone was infinitely more free. At this moment, Shen Xingyan, who had just finished an hour of insight in his tent within the safety zone, slowly stopped his training. My primordial energy reached 20 points, which gave this comprehension skill a 10-point increase in comprehension ability. This level of improvement indeed made me catch up to the transparent figure's pace a bit faster, but the gap is still very large. I really don't know why the transparent figure comprehends so quickly. Could it be that this little man doesn't comprehend based on his own attributes' comprehension ability? Or is it because my consciousness has already reached it, but my body cannot synchronize? Shen Xingyan, who was somewhat confused, couldn't help but shake his head slightly. After all, no matter the reason, it was not something he could solve at present. He only needed to train step by step. However, what's gratifying is that this hour of insight, its progress has increased by 4% compared to the previous 24%, reaching 28%. The overall progress has also reached 91.5%, and I can complete the remaining bit of progress in just over 2 hours. Putting aside his doubts, Shen Xingyan happily looked at the progress of the power of equilibrium. He was confident about the upcoming attribute increase. However, he did not put away his star origin to continue training, simply because the harvest time for yellow soybeans was approaching. At this stage, yellow soybeans are the last short-cycle crop I'm planting. In the future, Everything I plant will at least have a growth cycle of 50 days or more, like strawberries. I hope this yellow soybean harvest will give me a good result. Shen Xingyan thought this to himself, his attention simultaneously focused on his clone, who was already on a killing spree among the minor disasters. He told him to find a safe place to hide first. My consciousness will go to the star origin world later, and I don't know if the wisp of consciousness in the clone will dissipate after my main consciousness leaves. I haven't tried it before, so this is a good opportunity to verify it. Shen Xingyan thought this, but in his heart, he hoped that dissipation would not occur otherwise. His idea of gradually devouring extraterritorial world disasters with his clone would be directly aborted. Seeing that the clone had already found a safe place, Shen Xingyan also walked out of the tent to check the surrounding situation. Although he knew that the safety zone had dedicated personnel for management and that basically no accidents would occur. However, leaving an unconscious body exposed in this place for a long time was not a wise choice in his opinion. Therefore, Shen Xingyan's requirement for this yellow soybean harvest was simply to be quick. After observing the surrounding environment, Shen Xingyan saw that he hadn't found any potential dangers. So he quickly returned to the tent, placed the star origin card on his forehead, and his consciousness rapidly entered the star origin world. Appearing in the planting space, Shen Xingyan instantly teleported to the farmland where the yellow soybeans were planted. Then, without hesitation, he used the professional skill, which had completed its cooldown, on all the farmland, and told Wang Kai and the others to prepare to start working frantically. And his capable right-hand man, Wang Kai, as well as his left and right assistants, Lei Fu and Lei Qian, immediately began to act upon receiving this command. The 63 little skeletons moved in tacit understanding, as if they had rehearsed many times in advance, and the prototype of a skeleton legion was subtly taking shape. Shen Xingyan, who was casting his professional skill, also saw this scene, which made him feel very gratified. As the primordial energy surged within Shen Xingyan, a large amount of primordial energy began to gather on the novice staff in his hand. At the same time, the old friend's prompt sound appeared again. Ding tilde, it is detected that you are casting a professional skill on some crops that are about to mature. The casting of this skill may fail for these crops. Do you wish to continue? Regarding the arrival of his old friend, Shen Xingyan didn't have time to pray slowly this time, but instead nodded very decisively to confirm. After all, the shorter the time he stayed in the planting space now, the smaller the risk in his real world would be. As the primordial energy began to act on the farmland, Shen Xingyan anxiously waited for a few seconds, wanting to see the result of this gamble. And the star origin skill casting prompt did not make Shen Xingyan wait long. It suddenly appeared before his eyes amidst his eager anticipation. Congratulations, you have successfully cast a professional skill. Farmer professional experience value +1. Seeing this comforting brief prompt, Shen Xingyan was slightly excited. As expected, for the last harvest offshore cycle crops, the star origin world also gave him a lot of face. Then, without waiting for the professional skill to fully take effect, he handed this place over to Wang Kai. And he briefly instructed them to only be responsible for maintaining the prompts, and to specifically pay attention to the farmland with the mutated seeds. After giving a few instructions, he directly returned to the real world. After opening his eyes from the darkness, Shen Xingyan saw that everything in the real world was normal in the minute or so after he left. Which relieved him. Although I knew there wouldn't be any major danger, this isn't home after all, and having my consciousness leave my body is indeed a bit unnerving. Shen Xingyan sighed softly, then noticing the scene in his mind, a smile appeared on his face. The reason he returned to the real world so quickly was not only for safety, but also to see how the consciousness in his clone would react after he left. And now that he saw the still present scene in his mind, he immediately came to a conclusion. The self-consciousness within the clone could exist independently. This clear conclusion immediately made him overjoyed. This meant that if no accidents occurred in the future, his clone would continue to survive in the extraterritorial world for a long time. Like an assassin disguised within the enemy's ranks, fulfilling his goal of killing disasters there. Although the clone's attributes are still very low now, as the primordial energy attribute grows in the future, the clone will naturally become stronger and stronger. With him putting all his free attribute points into primordial energy, his future will undoubtedly be a terrifying existence. Next, we'll have to see if the demonic energy of the disasters can be continuously produced. The answer will be revealed in 4 hours. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but whisper with some anticipation. Chapter 165. With his spirits lifted, Shen Xingyan let his clone continue to kill disasters on its own. While he walked out of the tent again, pretending as if nothing had happened and casually looked around. The vast safety zone now only had a few scattered people. Some chef professionals were cooking dishes, probably preparing to sell them soon. Some blacksmiths and tailors had already set up their stalls, ready to maintain the durability of equipment for professionals returning from the extraterritorial world. And some people looked idle, wandering around in a state of boredom mixed with leisure. There were also some base managers patrolling back and forth to prevent unexpected incidents. Shen Xingyan observed everyone's varied behaviors, and he couldn't help but nod slightly in approval of his safety assessment of this environment. After confirming that the surroundings were indeed safe, he quickly returned to his tent, connected his star origin card to enter the planting space, and immediately began the rapid harvest of yellow soybeans. Gale's step was activated again, and with his speed effectively increased, Shen Xingyan, after a rough, simple, and efficient harvest, saw the last yellow soybean plant collected into his backpack space. And the star origin harvest prompt appeared as expected. Congratulations, you have planted 600 square meters of yellow soybeans this time, with a yield of 2040 kilograms, and gained 2040 farmer professional experience points. Seeing the harvest results for the yellow soybeans, Shen Xingyan nodded lightly, understanding that this achievement definitely exceeded the 700+ kilograms mentioned in the real-world data. But it was clear that the real-world data no longer had much reference value to him, so he didn't bother to care. Now let's see what kind of reward the star origin world can give me, Shen Xingyan whispered, looking at the prompt with anticipation. During the subsequent waiting period, he had already stayed in the planting space for several minutes, but he felt uneasy. It was his first time being out of body consciousness for so long in the extraterritorial world, and he felt it was necessary to go out and check again. After I get the breakthrough record reward, I'll go back to the real world first to check on my main body. It's not good to stay too long at once. I can go back and forth intermittently, which is objectively safer and subjectively more reassuring. Shen Xingyan thought this to himself, but he didn't just wait. Instead, he quickly opened his backpack space, separated the yellow soybean plants, and briefly checked the attributes of the 2 crops item. Yellow soybean outstanding value, 140 copper coins quantity, 2040 attribute, a relatively good cooking ingredient. Item wooden bean leaf outstanding value, 10 copper coins quantity, 400 attribute, an ingredient for a potion. Looking at the 2 outstanding grade crops, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. This time, the crops were still boosted by the black soil, but they barely reached outstanding grade quality. Their original quality was probably only premium grade. It seems that these short-term crops, even with special methods, are indeed lacking in value. If Shen Xingyan's thoughts were known to other peasant professionals, they would probably be so upset they'd cry without tears and beat their chests. After all, if they wanted to grow crops of this outstanding quality, they either relied on special methods or on the quality critical hit of the star origin world, and neither of these methods was easy to achieve. But now Shen Xingyan was showing an expression of dissatisfaction. How could that not make them feel indignant? Shen Xingyan, who was completely unaware of his own Versailles behavior, then opened the Star Origin Mall and sold all the crops. gaining a total of 289 silver coins plus 600 copper coins. Seeing this harvest of less than 300 silver coins, he, who had grown accustomed to earning at least 1 gold coin every day recently, was indeed a bit unaccustomed, but he didn't show any disdain and happily accepted it. After all, this money was unimaginable to him compared to his past. Although his earning ability had improved now, having come from a life of hardship, he naturally wouldn't feel any disdain for small amounts of money. On the contrary, he cherished them even more. After selling the crops, Shen Xingyin saw that the breakthrough record prompt had not yet appeared. So he opened his attribute panel and looked at the experience value column, 6550/20,000. The experience points harvested this time, as expected, did not meet the upgrade requirements. There are still over 13,000 experience points left until the threshold to upgrade my professional rank to rank 20. However, based on the recent strawberry harvest, I estimate that after the strawberries are harvested the day after tomorrow, I will be able to meet the experience requirements for upgrading. As Shen Xingyin secretly calculated in his mind, the star origin breakthrough record prompt also echoed in the planting space as he had expected. Congratulations! You have once again broken your previous record of 1,075 kilograms of strawberries per moo, successfully achieving a yield of 1,200 kilograms. You are specially rewarded with 1 talent skill growth stone. Star Origin will make a full zone announcement. Do you wish to disclose the information? Shen Xingyin, who was eager to finish reading the reward and quickly return to the real world to check on his main body, was stunned after seeing this prompt, and then a look of ecstasy filled his face. I really didn't expect that harvesting yellow soybeans this time would actually yield another talent stone. I originally didn't have much hope for this harvest. Star Origin World really gave me an unexpected surprise. Coming back to his senses, Shen Xingyin was immediately overjoyed. Looking at the prompt, which felt so familiar, he quickly requested to cancel the announcement. Do you wish to consume 100 silver coins to cancel this full zone announcement? The moment the prompt appeared, Shen Xingyin directly nodded to confirm. Then, the nearly 300 silver coins he had just acquired instantly disappeared by 100. And when Shen Xingyin saw this situation, the smile on his face became even brighter, as if he wasn't spending money, but earning it. However, in essence, exchanging 100 silver coins for a talent stone was indeed earning money. This also made Shen Xingyin spend the money with considerable justification. The star origin prompt in front of him also disappeared, along with the disappearance of the 100 silver coins. Immediately, a black light flashed, and that small black cute thing reappeared in Shen Xingyin's backpack space. This time, Shen Xingyin, having obtained the talent stone, did not wait. He directly took it out and clicked to use it. Regarding the cultivation of this farmland and the planting of strawberry seeds, he thought it wouldn't be too late to go out and check the situation first, then return later. As Shen Xingyin confirmed the use of the talent stone, just as he expected, he only felt a blackout before being kicked out by the Star Origin World. Chapter 166. Shen Xingyin, who was kicked back to the real world by Star Origin World, instinctively felt a bit dizzy and lightheaded. However, having anticipated this, he couldn't bother with his headache and quickly opened his eyes to look around. After confirming that there were no abnormalities, he finally relaxed, thinking, "It seems that after harvesting the strawberries tomorrow, I need to go to Star Origin Mall to see if I can purchase a portable protective formation and extract it. Otherwise, constantly traveling between the two worlds with such anxiety for the next few days won't do. With my current 5+ gold coins, I should be able to buy it, but I don't have money to extract it. I'm still poor. If I could buy it now, under the protection of the safety zone and the formation, I could have a good night's sleep tonight." Shen Xingyin sighed slightly, then happily took out his Star Origin card to check his attribute panel. His consciousness connected, and the attribute panel unfolded before him. His gaze unhesitatingly fell upon his talent skill, talent, Summon skeleton summons 6 skeleton monsters with all attributes at 6 for combat cooldown. 24 hours indeed. My talent skill in the real world has also improved. Each time I use it, I can summon 6 little skeletons with all attributes at 6. With my enhanced talent, I won't have to worry about the labor of Wang Kai and the others for now. The improvement of his talent skill brought Shen Xingyan a sense of relief. He then briefly checked the perspective of his clone in his mind, saw that the clone was looking for its next prey, nodded in satisfaction, and no longer paid much attention. Shaking his head, which was no longer as uncomfortable, Shen Xingyan, who was about to return to planting strawberries, quietly sensed his surroundings. Seeing no abnormalities, he returned to the planting space. Upon entering the tranquil planting space, he immediately saw Wang Kai and the others, whose bodies had grown a size larger with the increase in their attributes. With a thought, he checked Wang Kai's attribute panel and confirmed that all its attributes had indeed reached 6. Seeing this, Shen Xingyan smiled lightly and quickly began to farm. As Shen Xingyan appeared, Wang Kai and the others immediately sensed their master's arrival and turned their skeleton heads to look. The eyes of Wang Kai, Lei Fu, and Laikian, the 3 little skeletons, even flashed with worshipful blue ripples, and they worked even harder. Shen Xingyan also noticed the little skeletons' movements. After telling them to continue working, he quickly completed his own farm work. He called Wang Kai to join him in planting, and they swiftly finished planting the strawberry seeds. With its improved attributes, Wang Kai's cooperation with Shen Xingyan became even more seamless. The efficiency of one person and one skeleton planting strawberries greatly increased. Now that the attributes and number of the little skeletons have increased, future plowing and planting work will have to be handed over to them. I only need to use the skill and harvest, which won't take much time and will be of great benefit to my current situation. Looking at the strawberry farmland that had been planted, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but think, Wang Kai, from now on, plowing and planting strawberries will be up to you. Work hard. Shen Xingyan patted Wang Kai's shoulder, gave a few instructions, and then returned to the real world. Wang Kai, who had already attributed its strength improvement to its master's reward, followed its master's commands and instructions unconditionally and with great enthusiasm. It shook its skeleton head slightly, and the other little skeletons immediately accelerated their work. Even without using their berserk skill, their efficiency improved. Shen Xingyan, unaware of this scene, had just returned to the real world. Feeling safe, he let out a heavy sigh of relief, then suddenly stood up and began his training. The power of balance still needs 8.5% progress to reach level 6. At the current rate of 5.4% improvement per hour, it can be completed in just over an hour. Shen Xingyan briefly calculated the time needed for the upgrade in his mind. Then, driven by the desire for attribute improvement, his motivation instantly surged, and he immediately threw himself into training. As for the scenes of killing disasters in the other perspective in his mind, he didn't pay much attention, only occasionally glancing at them without much focus. However, Shen Xingyan, who was merely observing through the second perspective, did not notice the clone's abnormality. At this moment, the autonomous clone seemed to have lost interest in the current low-difficulty disaster elimination activity. With a fearless spirit, the battle-hungry gene in Shen Xingyan's clone's consciousness seemed to have been activated. It slowly began to search for those disasters whose strength was not much different from its own, and attacked them without hesitation. Since the consciousness dominating the clone was separated from Shen Xingyan, it knew everything about the main body, including martial skills. Therefore, when facing enemies, the clone naturally used the 2 martial skills of the main body, Gale Step and Dragon Elephant Fist. And with the main body's entry-level realm martial skill enhancement, the clone's execution of them gave off a professional vibe. Before long, after adapting to the clone's body, its movements increasingly approached the entry-level realm. If Shen Xingyan could check the clone's attributes at this moment, he would be surprised to find that the Dragon Elephant Fist and Gale Step martial skills, both at the initial glimpse realm, had already appeared in the clone's attribute bar. And because the clone had no stamina limit, it continuously used both martial skills during combat, causing their progress to accelerate even more. Over an hour later, in the safety zone on the other side, Shen Xingyin, immersed in his power of balance training, suddenly felt a familiar and addictive sensation of comfort surge through his entire body. Having anticipated this, Shen Xingyin slowly stopped his movements and, with a smile, opened the attribute panel within his star origin card, Equilibrium Force Level 6. Passive, 4 fixed attributes plus 6. Active, consumes 12 primordial energy to activate Equilibrium Force, temporarily transferring 12 attribute points to a designated attribute, lasting 2 minutes. Cooldown 10 minutes. Current progress 0% strength, 20 points agility, 20 points physique, 21 points spirit. 16 points. Shen Xingyin's gaze lingered on the description of equilibrium force. Then he looked at the improved 4 attributes, and the smile on his face deepened. Chapter 167. Another 4 attribute points received, and this achievement was reached in just 2 days. This improvement speed is too fast. I really don't know where the limit of the power of balance's improvement lies. I can't help but sigh. What kind of life was I living before? Back then, for the sake of attribute improvement, I endured that awkward and monotonous training for over a decade. At that time, I truly couldn't imagine something like this happening now, where gaining attributes has become so easy. However, if it weren't for that effort back then, perhaps I wouldn't be who I am today. Shen Xingyin couldn't help but think with a sigh as he looked at his improved skills and attributes. Then, seeing that his innate skills cooldown in the attribute panel was complete, he briefly checked his surroundings for any unusual movements. Finding none, he directly entered the planting space. Inside the planting space at this moment, the farmland maintenance prompt had long since returned to normal speed. And the little skeletons, whose all attributes had been improved, were leisurely toiling, giving off a feeling of ease and contentment. The peacefulness of the scene also caused Shen Xingyin's emotions, which had been somewhat agitated by the attribute improvements, to slowly calm down. He then began the purpose of his trip, directly casting his improved summon skill. The improved innate skills, chanting complexity, had also slightly increased, but it had no impact on Shen Xingyin. After a period of rapid chanting, 6 little skeletons, whose physiques had grown noticeably larger, appeared before him, bringing the total number of his skeleton army to a staggering 69. Shen Xingyin looked at these even sturdier little skeletons and couldn't help but tease softly. If I improve your attributes a few more times, I estimate you won't be called little skeletons anymore. I should remove the little and just call you skeletons. After a light chuckle, Shen Xingyin, pressed for time, didn't linger in the planting space. Handing all the newly summoned little skeletons over to Wang Kai, who was happily wagging his head, he directly returned to the real world. Upon returning to reality, Shen Xingyin slowly walked out of his tent, stretched with a big yawn, pretending to have just woken up from a carefree nap. Then, he slowly walked to the stall of a chef professional and chatted softly for a few moments. Finally, after learning that the freshly prepared food exceeded his budget outside, he decided to control his craving and slowly leave, planning to return to his tent, eat something, and then continue exercising. But at that moment, he saw Chu Wai and her team returning. Chu Wai evidently also saw Shen Xingyin and immediately left her teammates, jogging directly towards Shen Xingyin. Our leader usually seems quite aloof, but as soon as she sees this Shen Xingyin, she changes completely. She doesn't even know how to be reserved and just runs over like that. The young priestess beside her said with a speechless expression, then giggled and dispersed with the other team members, returning to their respective tents. Why are you back? Shen Xingyin couldn't help but smile genuinely as he saw Chu Wai jogging towards him, and he asked softly. Chu Wai looked at Shen Xingyin, who was full of gentle smiles. Under the setting sun, he appeared exceptionally handsome, and gave her a feeling that he had been waiting for her for a long time. Seeing this, Chu Wai's face also flushed slightly. However, she quickly composed herself and replied, "My parents warned me before that I should never stay outside the safety zone at night." Humans' night vision is far inferior to that of disasters, making it easy to suffer losses in combat. Besides, with those people from the Central District here this time, we probably won't get any good rankings, so there's no need to push ourselves so hard. We might as well come back early. These next few days, we'll try to go as far as possible and see if we can find anything. Chu Wai chattered away, completely unlike her usual taciturn self when with the team, and Shen Xingyan naturally nodded in strong agreement with Chu Wai's choice. It is very commendable to do things rationally while ensuring one's own safety. The two walked and talked, and Shen Xingyan naturally went to the chef's stall and bought some freshly cooked food. With Chu Wai by his side, he didn't need to worry too much. After all, Chu Wai was famously wealthy at school, and her parents were also among the top combat professionists in the Northern District. Spending more money with her wouldn't arouse any suspicion from others. And when the chef saw Shen Xingyan return with a girl by his side, he also showed an expression that all men understood. Shaking his head slightly and thinking, "Things I couldn't afford to eat, I can afford once I have a girlfriend." That's men for you. Shen Xingyan naturally didn't know the chef's thoughts. While eating and chatting with Chu Wai, a meal's worth of time passed. Seeing that it was getting late, and other trial participants had begun to return one after another, the safety zone became exceptionally lively. The two bid farewell to each other and returned to their respective tents. As the sky gradually darkened, Shen Xingyan, who had planned to have his clone find a safe place, now discovered that the clone's perspective in his mind was not affected by the changing light. Its vision remained as clear as before. This surprised him, but also felt quite normal. After all, the clone was condensed from primordial energy and was different from human eyes, so such an effect was reasonable. This discovery is truly amazing. If this continues, the clone, with no stamina limitations, can continuously kill disasters. Furthermore, due to the vision issue, its advantage at night is even greater, and it can kill them even faster. As soon as Shen Xingyan thought about the clone being able to kill disasters day and night, he felt a surge of exhilaration. Now, let's see if the third step of the clone plan can succeed. If I can successfully condense a second clone, then it means I can condense a third, a fourth. With this thought, Shen Xingyan calculated the cooldown time of the clone technique and found that there was still a little over an hour left. He didn't just wait idly, but began to train his power of balance again. An hour later, Shen Xingyan slowly stopped his movements and opened his attribute panel to check. Upon seeing that the level 6 power of balance was still improving at the same speed as before, reaching 5.4% progress, he merely sighed softly. Having grown accustomed to it, he quickly reined in that emotion. Looking at the clone technique's countdown in the attribute panel, he quietly waited a few minutes for the clone technique's cooldown to complete. Chapter 168. At around 8 p.m. on the first night of Shen Xingyan's extraterritorial world trial. As the cooldown for clone technique finished, he, who had been waiting for a long time, instantly activated it with a thought. As primordial energy was transformed by the clone technique and began to surge within his body, a trace of his consciousness also separated. The two energies merged, while simultaneously flowing towards the broken staff, tightly clutched in his hand. There had been no failure in casting the clone technique, nor had the original clone's perspective disappeared. Noticing this change, Shen Xingyan's worries instantly diminished greatly, and he secretly thought, "This guest should really have hope this time." While thinking this, his mind was constantly monitoring the clone's perspective, wondering if there would be any abnormalities in the original perspective after the second clone formed. Slowly, the clone technique was completed under Shen Xingyan's intense focus. At this moment, a clone identical to his main body stood before him, curiously observing the main body. At the same time, another perspective appeared in Shen Xingyan's mind. And the scene in this perspective was none other than Shen Xingyan's main body, with a look of pleasant surprise. Two clone perspectives can really exist simultaneously. In that case, the third step of the clone plan is also confirmed. Seeing the situation before him, Shen Xingyin felt completely relieved and his joy was overflowing. I'll call you Assassin 2. The first clone is Assassin 1. Although you are not assassin professionals and don't have assassin professional skills, I hope you can be like assassins, rooted in this extraterritorial world, like a sharp thorn in the throat. Although somewhat weak in the face of numerous disasters, you can make them uncomfortable. In the future, as my primordial energy increases, this thorn will also grow larger and more lethal, until it can pierce through the hearts of the disasters. Shen Xingyin thought with surging passion. At this moment, despite his surging emotions, he did not forget the next steps. He had Assassin 2 take the formation pass token and openly walk out of the tent, heading towards the outside of the safety zone. He was not worried at all that Assassin 2 would show any abnormalities that people might notice. After all, even he, as the main body, found no differences after carefully examining the clone. Even the illusory equipment and accessories on its body were identical. Except for a slight difference in touch, it was practically another Shen Xingyin. And what happened next was exactly as Shen Xingyin had expected. The Assassin 2 clone, in Shen Xingyin's image, walked through the safety zone. Along the way, no one noticed anything unusual about him. He even chatted with a few classmates he passed, and the main body, observing through the perspective, did not find any abnormal behavior from the classmates. Thus, the Assassin 2 clone successfully walked out of the safety zone and disappeared from everyone's sight. No accidents occurred in between. The entire process was incredibly smooth. As for Shen Xingyin, the main body, seeing that the clone had already escaped everyone's sight, he then attempted to teleportation to the Assassin 2 clone's side. Before, when I used teleportation, I only passed through obstacles. I wonder if I can pass through the formation. Shen Xingyin thought this, and at the same time, his thought slightly moved, and he used teleportation. As his vision went black, the next instant he appeared at the Assassin 2 clone's location. It really works. Any obstruction has little effect on teleportation, including the current formation. If this is the case, it's no wonder the senior before could enter and exit the disaster layers so freely. Shen Xingyin marveled at the magical nature of the teleportation skill. At the same time, he took back the formation token from the clone's hand and slowly walked back to the safety zone. The entire process of Shen Xingyin replacing the clone was seamlessly perfect, causing no surprise to the classmates he met on the way back. Upon returning to the tent, Shen Xingyin briefly observed the perspectives of the two clones and saw that they had already begun their tireless hunting. A look of satisfaction on his face. Feeling relieved, he then trained for 4 hours, increasing the progress of his level 6 equilibrium force to 27% at a rate of 5.4% per hour, before slowly stopping. Seeing that his energy and stamina were about to be depleted, he set up his sleeping spot and began his first sleep in the extraterritorial world to recover his expended energy. Ever since I awakened my profession, I haven't rested in the real world for a long time. For a moment, I really felt like I couldn't fall asleep. Lying on his bed, Shen Xingyin tossed and turned, unable to sleep, completely unlike how he could fall asleep in a second in the Star Origin world. There were psychological reasons for this, a fear of unexpected occurrences, but more so. The farmland and the planting space gave him a sense of peace and tranquility, making it easier for him to fall asleep. Unfortunately, for the sake of caution, I can't go to the Star Origin world for origin energy cultivation. I can only endure like this for a few days until the trial ends. Shen Xingyin comforted himself and then slowly drifted into a semi-conscious state. Thus, he spent his first night in the extraterritorial world. During this time, the two assassin clones outside the safety zone were having a blast. Without stamina limitations, they were unlike ordinary human race members who needed to rest to recover energy and stamina after a period of fighting. Completely unconcerned, they would mercilessly attack any small disasters they could defeat with their strength. With martial skill enhancements, their attribute bonuses increased as their martial skills were used more and more. Furthermore, guided by the main body's entry-level martial skill insights, their martial skill improvement speed became faster and faster, and they were already close to a breakthrough in realm. The next morning, Shen Xingyan, waking from his groggy state, assessed his condition. He found that, although his energy recovery was not ideal, it was at least enough to support his training for the day. Shen Xingyan then looked at the two perspective screens still present in his mind and nodded in satisfaction. It's a good thing I understood the information on these basic disasters very thoroughly when I was at school, allowing me to judge their true strength by their external characteristics. And the clones, inheriting my consciousness, intentionally avoided high-attribute disasters when choosing monsters, which prevented any mishaps. Shen Xingyan secretly analyzed. Chapter 169. Shen Xingyan, who was very satisfied with the performance of his clone, ate some food at this time to store energy for the upcoming training. As his physical attributes improved, his various abilities also gradually increased, including, naturally, his digestive capacity. The food, after entering his stomach, was quickly absorbed by his powerful digestive ability, transforming into reserves of energy, ready for him to call upon at any time. Afterward, Shen Xingyan, following the same method, sent out Assassin 3. Upon his return, he subtly assessed his physical condition, nodded slightly, and then prepared to begin the day's training. Before training, he still took out his Star Origin card to check his attribute panel, specifically focusing on the 27% progress displayed for Power of Equilibrium, and calculated in his mind, my current Power of Balance still needs 73% to advance to the next rank. If I subtract the 28% progress that can be gained from 1 hour of insight, then there's only 45% progress left that needs to be achieved through training. Based on my current training rate of 5.4% progress per hour, I only need less than 8 hours to achieve it again. No matter how I calculate it, I can definitely advance my Power of Balance by another rank today. This means another 4 attribute points are within my grasp. Upon reaching this conclusion, Shen Xingyan immediately felt invigorated, becoming even more immersed in his training. During this period, Chu Wai, who was heading to the extraterritorial world to seek gains, specifically came over to greet Shen Xingyan. But seeing this training fanatic from school, already sweating profusely while training in such a small tent, she felt both motivated and a sense of helplessness mixed with heartache. She felt great pity for Shen Xingyan's plight. Such a hardworking person, yet he couldn't awaken as a combat professional. Instead, those lazy people got good professions. This world truly is full of unfairness. Chu Wai, feeling somewhat emotional, having spent so many years with Shen Xingyan, knew his temperament well. Once he decided on something, 100 oxen couldn't pull him back. She then offered some words of encouragement and, along with the other members of her team, walked out towards the safety zone. After this small interlude, Shen Xingyan continued his training, striving for those 4 attribute points for the day. If Chu Wai knew that Shen Xingyan, a non-combat professional in her eyes, could now gain 4 attribute points after a day of training, her voice would likely be much softer when she complained about the unfairness of the heavens, even as she felt overjoyed. Shen Xingyan, toiling in the small tent, trained continuously from around 6 a.m. until about 1 p.m. when he slowly stopped. One reason was that his energy was mostly depleted and needed replenishment. The other was that the strawberry harvest time was approaching. Based on my previous calculations, the second round of strawberry harvesting can begin around 1:30 p.m. today. This timing allows for a further increase in the previous strawberry yield record, achieving the goal of a second round of profiteering, but I wonder if I'll get another talent stone this time. After all, he can never have too much of such good stuff. Shen Xingyan thought this to himself while slowly eating some food, recovering his depleted stamina. Having finished his training, with a thought, he summoned his star origin card into his hand to check his attribute panel. He saw that his growth skill, Power of Equilibrium, had already reached 64.5% after nearly 7 hours of training. Satisfied, he put away his attribute panel, eating as he walked out of the tent, giving off a leisurely vibe to those nearby, and began strolling around the safety zone. At this time, although the number of people remaining in the safety zone had decreased again, it was still significantly more than yesterday. Many lifestyle professionals, whose curiosity about the outside world had been satisfied, also chose to stay within the safety zone today. Having no combat methods of their own, they now shared Shen Xingyan's idea. Just endure until the end of the trial and then go back, treating it entirely as a trip to the extraterritorial world. And at this point, the differences among lifestyle professionals began to show. Aside from peasant professional, other professionals were either forging, cooking, or even a few small alchemists had begun researching new potions by gathering local materials, though their success rate was quite touching. Among these many lifestyle professionals, there were also many peasant professionals like Shen Xingyan, who seemed to wander aimlessly throughout the safety zone, occasionally looking here and there like passers-by in life. After all, having long known that they couldn't plant in the real world, they couldn't just find a plot of land and start planting to pass the time. Moreover, they didn't have as many concerns as Shen Xingyan. They couldn't fully dedicate their time in the star origin world to working on their farmland in the planting space to gain long-term benefits. While strolling around, Shen Xingyan also had a brief chat with them and learned that after a month of planting, they had generally raised their professional rank to around rank 4 to 5. However, as the experience points required for subsequent advancements increased, and lacking other means of leveling up, their leveling difficulty also grew. From the conversation, Shen Xingyan clearly sensed the despair beneath their calm tones, speaking hopeless words with an indifferent attitude. After a month of struggle and comparison with combat professionists of the same period, they became increasingly aware of what it meant to be born different. Shen Xingyan also felt a certain empathy for their thoughts. After all, having started managing his life from a young age, he was more mature than his peers and had a clearer understanding of professions than others. Upon learning that he had awakened as a farmer, he had already anticipated such a consequence. So his mood at the time was just like that of the peasant professional before him now. After a fierce psychological struggle, he slowly returned to a hopeless calm. It just took others a month to accept reality, while he only needed an afternoon. I am also fortunate to have obtained these two powerful skills. I should truly cherish the present and live well. Shen Xingyan's resolve to proceed cautiously grew stronger. He would try to avoid risky endeavors in the future. And even if he absolutely had to undertake one, he would consider dozens of fallback plans first. Chapter 170. Shen Xingyan feigned idleness, strolling in and out of the safety zone for more than 10 minutes, then returned to his tent with a look of disinterest. His behavior was noticed by the life professions in the North District. Seeing Shen Xingyan, once an inspiring role model who commanded the school, now wasting time due to his awakened profession, they couldn't help but sigh. Fate truly plays tricks on people. A prodigy so brilliant was so easily toyed with by fate, given a life profession. Such a life profession turned all his efforts into smoke, and if it were me, I'd probably be the same. One person quietly sighed like this, and those around him also showed expressions of deep agreement, shaking their heads slightly as they watched Shen Xingyan's retreating back, while their attention towards this former prodigy gradually lessened. And this was precisely the outcome Shen Xingyan wanted to see by creating that illusion just now. Upon returning to his tent, Shen Xingyan directly connected his star origin card and entered Star Origin World. After a familiar sensation of transmigration, he arrived in the planting space and once again felt the unique aura of a Ning in this space. Looking at the farmland filled with the aura of life before him, Shen Xingyan unconsciously smiled. Then he turned his gaze to Wang Kai and the others, these diligent little skeletons who worked tirelessly day and night, helping him manage the farmland in an orderly manner, which made him sigh with emotion. I really don't know what kind of reward Wang Kai and the others truly need. It seems I'll have to look up relevant information later. If the price is right, I don't mind arranging one for each of them. At this moment, Shen Xingyan felt like a black-hearted boss who had a sudden realization of conscience, beginning to actively consider the needs of the little skeletons. But he only thought about it for a moment before temporarily setting it aside. His primary task now was to use his professional skill. Shen Xingyan looked at the target farmland that was to be harvested this time. Then, without any hesitation, he directly took out his novice staff, extending the casting range to all the farmlands. As he silently chanted in his mind, the professional skill was instantly activated, and the primordial energy within his body began to surge. In a short while, the primordial energy gathered at the tip of his novice staff, and at this moment, Star Origin's old friend's prompt arrived as promised. Ding tilde, it has been detected that you are casting a professional skill on some crops that are about to mature. The casting of this skill may fail for these crops. Do you wish to continue? This time, Shen Xingyan still followed the example of harvesting yellow soybean last time, choosing to continue without hesitation, while hoping to get another talent stone like last time. And with his confirmation, the primordial energy, transformed by the professional skill, began to act upon all the farmlands. This suspenseful process lasted only a few seconds, and then, under Shen Xingyan's expectant gaze, Star Origin's skill prompt began to appear before him. Congratulations, you have successfully cast a professional skill, Farmer Professional Experience +1. Seeing the successful casting prompt again, Shen Xingyan's expectant gaze turned into a look of certainty. He couldn't help but sigh. It succeeded again. Recently, it seems to succeed every time. I've almost forgotten what a failure prompt looks like. And for his subconscious display of humble bragging, he immediately realized something was amiss and quickly said tui twice. He was afraid that such a sigh would be heard by Star Origin World, increasing the difficulty for him when he used his profession tomorrow. Although he had the blessing of luck value, if Star Origin World gave him a failure prompt, that was something that a small luck value couldn't stop. If that were truly the case, then he would be somewhat to blame for himself. Shen Xingyan hurriedly bowed towards the sky, making up for his previous verbal slip, and also criticized his own wandering thoughts. Then he did not return to the real world immediately like yesterday, but planned to finish things here before returning. Perhaps after a day of rest, he had adapted to the environment in the real world, and his excessive perception of danger was no longer as sensitive as yesterday, thus reducing his unease significantly. As he thought this, all the crops also stopped their rapid growth, returning to a normal state of growth. And above the strawberry farmland, beneath Shen Xingyan's feet, a harvestable prompt also appeared simultaneously. Wang Kai, the maintenance tasks for the other farmlands are all entrusted to you. As this command was issued, Shen Xingyan's figure began to move swiftly. Due to the increase in attributes in the real world, Shen Xingyan's harvesting speed also climbed again at this time. And under this rapid harvest, he only took 3 or 4 minutes to collect all these mature strawberries into his backpack space. At the same time, Star Origin's harvest prompt also began to appear. Congratulations! You have planted 600 square meters of strawberry this time, with a yield of 1280 kilograms, and gained 7680 Farmer Professional Experience points. Seeing the yield number in the harvest prompt, Shen Xingyan also recalled the strawberry harvest record from the day before yesterday, 1250 kilograms. Due to the interval in harvest time this time, the yield was slightly less compared to last time, resulting in an increase of only about 30 kilograms this time. Shen Xingyan had already predicted this. For him, breaking the record at this stage was enough. He didn't particularly care how much the yield increased or decreased. Thinking this, his hand movements did not stop. He used the backpack function to separate the strawberry plants. Seeing that it was again a perfect grade strawberry crop, He was satisfied and quickly opened the Star Origin Mall, directly selling both crops. At this time, he gained a total of 5 gold, 393 silver, and 500 copper coins from the harvest. Adding his original money, his assets once again crossed the threshold of 10 gold coins. Seeing this amount of gold coins, Shen Xingyan was momentarily caught in a dilemma. According to his plan yesterday, he originally wanted to see if he could buy a miniature defensive formation to make himself safer in reality. But now, seeing these 10 gold coins, he wavered again. He also thought about continuing to extract primordial energy points. After all, every single point of primordial energy was of great help to him in the real world, and extracting it earlier would allow him to strengthen himself sooner. And just as Shen Xingyan was immersed in this dilemma, at this moment, Star Origin World's record-breaking prompt began to echo in his ears. Chapter 171. Congratulations, you have once again broken your record of 1250 kg of strawberry yield per farmland, successfully reaching 1280 kg. You are specially rewarded with a special item, Scarecrow plus 10. Xingyuan will make a full zone announcement. Do you wish to make the information public? The Xingyuan prompt announcing the broken record instantly captured Shen Xingyan's attention. When he saw that the special item rewarded for this broken record was Scarecrow, and the quantity was 10, he couldn't help but scratch his head in confusion, thinking with some surprise, Scarecrow. I heard this item often appeared in farmlands before the primordial energy outburst. Its main purpose was to prevent flying birds from invading the farmlands, serving a certain deterrent effect. I didn't expect that Star Origin World's rewards would also include this item, and this time I was directly given 10 of them. This quantity is a bit thought-provoking. After all, previous rewards usually came one by one, rarely appearing in even numbers. Only at the very beginning, when the farmland rewards were more generous, and now it has started rewarding one farmland at a time. Thinking of this, a strange expression appeared on Shen Xingyan's face, and he began to have some pessimistic thoughts about this reward. Could it be that Star Origin World thinks there's a quality issue with the rewarded item this time, and wants to make up for the value with quantity? However, the Scarecrow is said to have only had the effect of scaring people in the past, with no other significant uses. I wonder what effect these low-value items will have, but according to the reward pattern for breaking records in the past, this Scarecrow shouldn't be that simple, right? With such questions, Shen Xingyan's mind stirred, expressing his desire to cancel the full zone announcement. He then wisely paid 100 silver coins. And Star Origin World is very principled, taking people's money to solve their problems. The prompt instantly disappeared, and the entire Star Origin World became calm, with no intention of making an announcement. At the same time, the 10 scarecrows rewarded for breaking the record entered his backpack space in several consecutive flashes of yellow light. A somewhat curious Shen Xingyan quickly opened his backpack space and looked at the item in the last slot, an exquisite small figure woven from straw. Then, with a thought, he checked the scarecrow's attribute description item, Scarecrow special item quantity, 10 attributes, permanent item. Can set a fear domain within a maximum range of 1,000 square meters, causing invaders with a mental attribute below 500 points to become lost within the domain. Requirement: requires injection of primordial energy when used. Basic duration ratio is 1 primordial energy, 10 hours, 1 square meter range. Current status: closed, can be activated after injecting primordial energy. Remarks: a good helper for guarding farmlands, an essential item for an excellent farmer, made from early Xingyuan straw. After seeing the attributes of these scarecrows, although Shen Xingyan felt the attributes were acceptable and had a good enemy-repelling effect, he still couldn't help but slightly shake his head. Sure enough, this time the quantity increased, but its quality couldn't compare to rewards like talent stones. Although such a special item would be very useful for other peasant professional, especially those level 30+ peasant professional who have been plagued by monster invasions. If they had this item, their crop yield would see a leap-like improvement. It would be a dream item. But for myself, who has a powerful skeleton army, I don't need to worry about guarding the farmlands at all, which makes the scarecrow somewhat better than nothing. Shen Xingyan sighed a little at this special item, which was useful but not suitable for his current situation. But just as he was regretting this reward, and preparing to hand over the plowing and planting tasks of the farmland under his feet to Wan Kai and his group, and quickly return to the real world to confirm his safety, a Xingyuan prompt appeared before his eyes. Ding Tilde detected that you have 10 or more items of the same type. Do you want to merge them into an extractable item? Shen Xingyan, who was about to take action, paused his body upon seeing this prompt, and then his eyes slowly brightened. There's even this kind of operation. Using 10 special items can directly merge them into an item that can be extracted to the real world. So it's not just money that can be used for extraction. But upon closer thought, it makes some sense. After all, in terms of value, they have indeed reached the standard value for extraction. The appearance of this current prompt seemed to have given Shen Xingyan a crucial piece of knowledge. And the expression on his face began to become joyful. Being able to extract the scarecrow to the real world is fantastic. I no longer need to agonize over whether to extract primordial energy or buy a formation with these 10 gold coins on me. With the scarecrow in the real world, defensive formations are no longer needed. If I set the scarecrow's range of effect around my body, the consumption of primordial energy will be less, and endurance will not be an issue at all. And with the scarecrow's 500 mental attribute limit, there's no need to worry about safety. Shen Xingyan thought happily, and at the same time, he quickly confirmed the item synthesis. With his confirmation, the 10 scarecrows instantly merged into one and became extractable. Seeing this, Shen Xingyan took it out of his backpack and observed the miniature scarecrow for a moment. Its size was like a pendant, very convenient to carry around, and wouldn't arouse any suspicion. Then, with a smile, he extracted it, and the scarecrow pendant in his hand suddenly disappeared. Seeing the scarecrow disappear, Shen Xingyan quickly called Wan Kai over, instructed him on the upcoming plowing and planting matters, and handed over all the plowing tools and seeds to him. After giving his instructions, he still felt a little uneasy and asked, "Wan Kai, do you understand? Can you do a good job?" And after receiving Wan Kai's affirmative nod, he smiled and patted his skeleton head, thinking to himself, "After I've dealt with the scarecrow in the real world, I'll come back and see how Wan Kai and the others are doing. If it's not good, I'll clear it out and do it myself. This time, I'll just treat it as an experiment." Anyway, now that I have the scarecrow, safety issues have temporarily disappeared, and the time I can spend in Star Origin World has suddenly become much more abundant. Chapter 172. Shen Xingyan gently put down the thoughts in his mind, then checked his attribute panel, letting his gaze linger a moment longer on the experience bar, which currently showed an experience value of 14,231/20,000. Seeing this, he couldn't help but think to himself, "It seems I can raise my professional rank to 20 tomorrow, reaching another stage and officially leaving the novice phase. However, I don't know what kind of second professional skill the Star Origin World will give me after reaching this threshold rank. But it's probably related to the ranch, as that stage is also when the ranch opens. It's unlikely I'll get a combat-oriented professional skill." Shen Xingyan, who had a slight obsession with combat professions, despite knowing it was impossible, still held a hint of anticipation in his heart. Then, his main body, reassured in the real world, directly vanished from where he stood. After Shen Xingyan disappeared, Wang Kai, having received its master's command, immediately led its 2 trusted subordinates, Lei Fu and Lei Qian, along with several other little skeletons summoned earlier, and began cultivating this farmland. There is strength in numbers, even for skeletons. With several skeletons working together, their cultivation efficiency was even a few points faster than Shen Xingyan's. Moreover, if one looked closely, while maintaining efficiency, they could fully focus on one task, making their cultivation more meticulous than Shen Xingyan's. At this moment, Shen Xingyan, who had returned to the real world, also opened his eyes, briefly checking his surroundings. Seeing that there was nothing unusual, he finally relaxed. The time he spent there was a bit too long for him, which was why he felt a little uneasy. With his mind settled, Shen Xingyan immediately picked up his star origin card and took out the scarecrow from his temporary backpack. He looked at the miniature pendant, and thinking of its powerful defensive effect, he felt a sense of security. After admiring the exquisite scarecrow for a while, he slightly mobilized one point of primordial energy within his body and directed it towards the scarecrow. After using primordial energy multiple times in the star origin world and the real world during this period, his control over primordial energy, though not yet perfectly precise, was already very skillful, and his control over the quantity of primordial energy was extremely accurate. 1 minute later, as one point of primordial energy was successfully injected into the scarecrow item, Shen Xingyan immediately put it on and set the protection range to within 1 meter of his body, thus completing the activation. Feeling this invisible protection, Shen Xingyan lay down feeling secure and relaxed. After a brief wait, his consciousness returned to the star origin world. At this moment, with his sense of security greatly enhanced, he no longer rushed through the planting space, but instead strolled leisurely, exuding an indescribable sense of ease. Inspecting the planting space, he first observed Wang Kai and the others busy planting strawberries, discovering that their meticulousness made him feel somewhat ashamed. This feeling of being outdone by skeletons made him blush, and then he slowly departed. He would only wait for Wang Kai and the others to finish planting, then record the completion time to facilitate the calculation of the professional skills activation in the late stage. He then walked over to the mutated crop, squatted down, and examined it carefully. He found that, after 3 accelerations from his professional skill, the mutated crop had successfully left its sprout state and reached the growth state of a single blade of grass, without any hint of divine color. This mutated crop has now grown for 33 days, yet it's still in this form. It won't still be like this when the 100-day growth cycle is complete, will it? That would truly be amazing. What a strange reward. Shen Xingyan squatted there, marveling and sighing at the same time, making various guesses about the future of this crop. But he only thought about it briefly, after all. Who knows what surprise awaits until the very last moment. Slowly standing up, he looked at the busy little skeletons. He felt like helping them work, but this thought was immediately dismissed. It's better to leave everything to Wang Kai and the others. After their attributes improved, their labor capacity is somewhat overflowing in this situation, and I don't need to participate at all. Moreover, as a qualified leader, I must learn to delegate. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but recall a book called If You Can't Manage, You'll Work Yourself to Death that was once very popular before the primordial energy outbreak. After finding a suitable reason for himself, Shen Xingyan began to quietly appreciate the planting space. At the same time, he also took a rare short rest in his usual spot. However, his gaze occasionally drifted towards Wang Kai and their work, waiting to record its completion. In less than half an hour, Wang Kai and the others completed all processes of the strawberry farmland, from cultivation to planting. Seeing this, Shen Xingyan slowly stood up, now having a general understanding of the time it took Wang Kai and the others to cultivate one farmland. After recording the farmland's planting time, he spent 10 gold coins to extract 1 point of primordial energy upper limit to the real world. After encouraging Wang Kai and the others, he returned as well. In the real world, Shen Xingyan, upon his return, saw that there was still nearly an hour left until the comprehension time cooldown. He then deactivated the scarecrow's effect, stood up, and slowly began to train his power of balance. An hour later, the total progress of his power of balance skill reached 70%. At this current pace, I'll be able to upgrade the rank of power of balance soon. I have to say, with ample training time now, plus the increasingly faster progress, the upgrade speed of power of balance has accelerated again. This feeling is truly addictive. If, at some point in the future, this speed suddenly returns to normal, I might even be very unaccustomed to it. Shen Xingyan chuckled, replenished some energy, and then unreservedly activated his comprehension skill to further boost his progress. With the activation of the comprehension skill, an hour of insight time arrived. At this point, due to the increase in his primordial energy upper limit, his comprehension ability value also increased by 10.5, reaching a value of 18.5. The increasingly higher comprehension ability made Shen Xingyan generate more and more thoughts when observing the transparent figure's movements in his mind. And consequently, the subtle charm in his movements became increasingly apparent. Chapter 173. In this state of near enlightenment, Shen Xingyan's progress in improving his power of balance accelerated, and the nearly 1 hour of insight time also flew by. For him at this moment, time undoubtedly flowed fastest during such a wonderful period. In his perception, he felt as if only a few minutes had passed when the 1 hour of insight time was already nearing its end. However, he was completely unaware of this, only feeling an unusual sense of comfort throughout his body. He was naturally very familiar with this feeling, as he had experienced it many times before, both in the star origin world and the real world. However, this feeling only caused him to pause his actions for a moment before he continued his training. After all, he was very clear about the preciousness of insight time. During this period, the progress of the power of balance increased almost every minute and every second, and he naturally would not waste a single bit of it. However, the passage of time would not slow down because of Shen Xingyan's cherish, but rather, subjectively, it would feel faster and faster to him. Just like that, the 1 hour of insight time ended, the transparent figure in Shen Xingyan's mind disappeared, and his comprehension ability value returned to 8 points. Shen Xingyan had long been accustomed to this huge drop in comprehension ability and quickly adapted, then slowly began to stop his physical movements. Although his physical movements stopped, his mind subconsciously savored the feeling from just now, as well as the subtle changes in the essence of the power of balance. After a long while, he slowly recovered from that state, then let out a heavy breath. It's truly profound. It gives me a feeling of endless learning. Who created this power of balance, and why was it dismembered beyond recognition? Moreover, through my observations of the people around me during this time, I found that even those advanced occupationalists don't seem to know of its existence. If I didn't have the deduction ability of the comprehension skill, even with higher comprehension ability, I probably wouldn't have known about this skill. Shen Xingyan's curiosity about the power of balance grew increasingly intense as his training deepened. Unable to find an answer for the time being, he slowly suppressed this curiosity and began to examine the results of this session. With a thought, a star origin card smoothly appeared in his hand, with the improvement of his spiritual attribute. His control over such basic object manipulation became more natural. The star origin card automatically affixed itself to his forehead. And Shen Xingyan checked the skill prompts and attribute increases for this session. Power of balance rank 7, passive. 4 fixed attributes plus 7 active. Consumes 14 primordial energy, activates power of balance. Can temporarily transfer 14 attribute points to a specified attribute, lasts 2 minutes, cooldown 10 minutes. Current progress, 2% strength, 21 points agility, 21 points physique, 22 points spirit. 17 points. Seeing that the attribute increase was as he expected, Shen Xingyan nodded in satisfaction. Then he focused his attention on the 2% progress text in the power of balance description. Indeed, the increase in primordial energy limit allowed my progress for this hour to reach 32%. Not only completing the 30% progress required to increase the rank, but also exceeding it by 2%. And looking at this progress, the increase in the rank 7 power of balance will be as rapid as before, or even more so. If my estimation is correct, each hour of training will result in a 6.2% progress increase. This kind of significant daily improvement truly gives me a snowballing sense of growth. If this continues in the future, increasing the power of balance by 1 rank every day will only be the most basic operation. And it's even possible to increase it by 2 ranks in the future. Shen Xingyin couldn't help but imagine, but he only thought this way, as rationality told him how such a situation could possibly continue indefinitely. Even a snowball will eventually stop, it's just a matter of sooner or later. I hope that even if the growth rate stops in the future, maintaining the current speed would be very good, Shen Xingyin murmured softly. After sighing, Shen Xingyin saw that the clone technique skill cooldown had also completed. Feeling refreshed after the attribute increase, he slowly walked out of the tent and headed outside the safety zone. It was currently a busy time, and if 2 Shen Xingyin were simultaneously in the safety zone and discovered, it would be troublesome. Although the probability of this was very low, he still chose to act cautiously. He planned to take a stroll outside the extraterritorial world, cast the clone technique, and then return, also taking some time to relax. After all, as a normal human race, staying in a tent for a long time would lead to many thoughts and inevitably generate negative emotions. Along his way, he heard discussions from those around him. Have you heard? Many people who went out today saw the corpses of those minor disasters not far from the safety zone. And they're all discussing who killed them but didn't collect them to sell for money. I heard about it a long time ago, and not only did I hear about it, I even went to see it myself. It's true, I wonder what great benefactor is giving out welfare. Hearing these voices, Shen Xingyin, as the head of the great benefactors, couldn't help but pause his steps and sighed inwardly. It seems I need to have my clones hunt in more distant places. If they are all concentrated in this area, the school might notice something unusual and start investigating, which would be troublesome. Although they wouldn't ultimately trace it back to me, there's no need to cause such trouble. Shen Xingyin thought this to himself, and at the same time, with a thought, he sent his several clones to hunt in distant places. As for not collecting the corpses to sell for money, if Shen Xingyin were an ordinary peasant professional, he would certainly feel very regretful, as even a small mosquito is still meat. Although low-attribute disasters are cheap, they add up over time. But for him, whose daily earnings now exceeded 5 gold coins, he felt no regret at all. After all, wouldn't it be better to use that time to train his power of balance to improve attributes or harvest crop? Moreover, selling anything would leave traces, and he didn't want to take that risk. As he thought this, he arrived outside the extraterritorial world, found a hidden corner, and activated his occupational skill, and his clone team expanded to 4. Chapter 174. Shen Xingyin watched as the 4th clone technique he summoned transformed into a tiny black light and vanished from his sight, a look of satisfaction appearing on his face. At this moment, he was like a diligent farmer, planting one destructive factor after another in this extraterritorial world, hoping that these clones would blossom everywhere in the future and contribute their part to this land. Then he gently clapped his hands and, with a chuckle, returned to the safety zone. However, just as he comfortably entered his tent, he suddenly felt a strong emotional fluctuation from Assassin 1 in his mind. This made him, who had not paid much attention to the clone's perspective, quickly focus his attention on Assassin 1 perspective. In the current scene, the shrunken Assassin 1 clone was seen frantically fleeing, occasionally turning around to check the situation behind it. But this glance made Shen Xingyin's eyes widen involuntarily, as he saw a gigantic white ape closely following behind it. Moreover, judging by the white ape's relaxed demeanor, it seemed as if it was playing with a novel toy. Even on its ferocious face, a rather human-like playful expression was now visible. Upon seeing this, Shen Xingyin couldn't help but frown. How did Clone 1 encounter such a huge fellow? There was an introduction to white apes in the previous data. It seems their full attributes are all above 50 points, and their strength is as high as over 80. Coupled with their innate skill, which is generally physical attack enhancement, their physical attack value is even more terrifying. Now that Assassin 1 has been targeted by it, it's probably in grave danger. It hadn't been long since I issued the command to stay away from this area, and such an incident occurred. It seems this outward expansion is not as smooth as imagined. In the future, I must deliberate before acting with the clones. Shen Xingyan began to reflect, learning from his mistakes and not allowing himself to stumble in the same place again. And the subsequent scene in the perspective was just as Shen Xingyan had guessed, as the Assassin 1 clone continuously fled. The white ape seemed to lose its interest in playing, and after a cruel smile appeared on its face, it directly stepped on the clone. As this step covered the perspective, Assassin 1 perspective instantly disappeared, clearly indicating that it was killed by the white ape in one blow, with no possibility of survival. Although I had long anticipated such a situation with the clones, I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. It seems my previous decision was too rash. In the future, I must proceed slowly. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but shake his head and sigh, feeling that he had previously thought of the extraterritorial world as too simple. I fantasized that by leveraging the clones' ability to freely change their size, I could rest easy in the extraterritorial world, acting as a thorn in the throat of a disaster. But I underestimated the strength and perception of those disasters. After all, every disaster, like humans, has its innate skill. Although the abilities of the same type of disaster are basically fixed, there are many variations, and the abilities that evolve from them are even more bizarre. Furthermore, the stronger the strength, the stronger its perception ability. It's not strange for it to detect the abnormality of the clone, and the commotion caused by combat could also expose the clone. Shen Xingyan looked at the vanished perspective, beginning to analyze the true reason for this clone's setback and some potential factors that could lead to future clone exposure. At the same time, in his consciousness, he issued a command to the other clones to act cautiously, trying to avoid further losses. And as Shen Xingyan issued the command, that wisp of consciousness from Assassin 1, having traversed an unknown number of kilometers, returned to the main consciousness. At the same time, it replayed all the previous scenes in Shen Xingyan's mind. Shen Xingyan had experienced this before, so he wasn't too surprised and watched calmly. The screen showed mostly combat scenes of Clone 1, as well as its reconnaissance of the surrounding terrain and disasters. Watching the clone battle various disasters, Shen Xingyan initially just glanced at it, preparing to fast forward to the last moment to see how Assassin 1 attracted the white ape's attention. However, in these rough combat scenes, he was pleasantly surprised to discover that the Assassin 1 clone was actually using Dragon Elephant Fist against the enemy. And from the posture and feeling exuded by its movements, it was subtly almost identical to his own entry-level boxing, which immediately lifted Shen Xingyan's previously somewhat annoyed mood. My clone can actually use my martial arts. This is truly something I hadn't expected. However, while this matter seems surprising at first glance, upon closer thought, it is somewhat reasonable. After all, the consciousness within the clone is separated from myself, essentially another me. Although due to the limitations of the clone technique skill, it cannot use my other skills. It can use combat methods like martial arts, which are acquired through training. After all, martial arts are not like skills that require special conditions. Martial arts only require the mental realm to be in place, and the movements follow accordingly, after which everything falls into place naturally. With the addition of martial arts, the clone's combat ability is indirectly enhanced. This discovery is very important. Moreover, looking at the Dragon Elephant Fist performed by the clone, it is infinitely close to my own. It seems their martial arts performance should be based on me as the standard. The higher the main body's realm, the higher their martial arts upper limit will be. It seems that in the future, when necessary, I will have to raise the realm of my martial arts. Watching Assassin 1 combat scenes, Shen Xingyan's mind was instantly filled with thoughts, and a smile slowly appeared on his previously calm face. And while Shen Xingyan was somewhat surprised, the the scene progressed to the stage where the white ape appeared. At this moment, the Assassin 1 clone was fully engaged in a head-on clash with the disaster in front of it. But the white ape suddenly jumped beside them, causing the ground to shake. Seeing the unfavorable situation, the clone also quickly fled, leading to the scene Shen Xingyan had just witnessed. And through this scene, the reason the clone was ultimately pursued was also found. It was indeed the commotion from the battle that attracted the white ape. Upon seeing this reason, Shen Xingyan felt much more relaxed, calmly analyzing in his mind. As long as the clone wasn't locked onto by the disaster using some special means, then everything that follows won't deviate too much from the plan. In the future, I just need to have the other clones pay attention to their surroundings. Chapter 175. After Shen Xingyan finished receiving all the memories from Assassin 1 clone consciousness, he had a general understanding of the surrounding disaster distribution and the terrain he was in. According to the comparison between the memories in the clone's consciousness and the data, it was found that this area indeed has no particularly powerful disasters. It should have been cleared by high-level combat professionist. And the place where the clone encountered the white ape is quite far from here, so the surroundings are temporarily safe. Shen Xingyan was processing his understanding of the surroundings when he suddenly felt a strange anomaly in his primordial energy. Having never experienced this feeling before, he instinctively thought of a negative reason. Could it be that after a clone is destroyed, it also has some adverse effects on the physical body, like weakening the physical body's primordial energy or something? Otherwise, why would I feel this way? This sudden primordial energy anomaly made Shen Xingyan feel uncertain, as the concept of punishment for failure was deeply ingrained in everyone's consciousness in this era. However, while Shen Xingyan was having these thoughts, the primordial energy anomaly only lasted for a moment before completely stopping. Shen Xingyan felt the primordial energy within his physical body, but found no weakening. Instead, he felt a slight increase, which made him puzzled. What's going on? Why does my primordial energy feel a bit stronger than before? Shen Xingyan exclaimed in surprise, quickly taking out his star origin card and examining it with his mind. What's happening? Why did my primordial energy attribute cap suddenly increase by 1 point? He couldn't help but exclaim softly as he looked at the attribute panel. At this moment, Shen Xingyan's primordial energy attribute had indeed changed, as he said, from what should have been 21 points to 22 points. Shen Xingyan, who had no psychological preparation for this, was so astonished he couldn't close his mouth. The primordial energy anomaly just now wasn't a punishment, but a benefit. My previous primordial energy improvements were either a natural progression with age or direct extraction from the star origin world. I've truly never experienced this kind of primordial energy anomaly, so I was a bit prejudiced. After being stunned for a long time, when he came to his senses, a joyful expression gradually spread across his face. And he thought with a sudden understanding, could it be that the source absorbed by the clone, when it killed disasters, also acted upon my physical body with the return of its consciousness? Is that why my primordial energy cap increased? Shen Xingyan couldn't help but think this way, based on what happened before the anomaly. However, it should also be partly because I'm about to turn 19 in a few months, and there's been over half a year of natural primordial energy growth. Otherwise, if the disasters killed by the clone in 2 days could increase my primordial energy cap by 1 point, that would be a bit too exaggerated. But even so, it's already quite good. Killing disasters nonstop for 2 days, while keeping myself safe, also increased my primordial energy growth by several months' worth. It's probably also because the clone is in primal energy condensation, and its efficiency in absorbing source is much higher than that of a normal physical body. Otherwise, I wouldn't have heard of combat professionists who hunt disasters in the extraterritorial world all year round, having such rapid primordial energy improvements. And I don't just have 1 clone, do I? And at least 2 clones are generated every day, and their number will increase over time. As he thought of this, Shen Xingyan's eyes grew brighter. He couldn't help but walk out of the tent, looking towards the world outside the safety zone, and softly murmured, "How is this a dangerous extraterritorial world? This is clearly a huge primordial energy extraction field, a blessed land." At this moment, Shen Xingyan was probably the only one with such a thought. For others, the extraterritorial world indeed offered many opportunities, but they also needed the luck to seize them. They were truly dicing with death, unlike Shen Xingyan, who could gain so much primordial energy without risk while sitting comfortably at home. At this moment, Shen Xingyan didn't care what others thought. He looked at the entire extraterritorial world as if he were looking at a huge treasure trove. To be able to gradually increase his own and his clone's strength while killing disasters, such a positive cycle was truly wonderful for him. If it weren't for the need to consider the impact, he would have wanted to jump around wildly to vent his joy. After a while, Shen Xingyan finally suppressed his somewhat agitated emotions. That unprecedentedly confident gaze, coupled with a faint smile at the corner of his mouth, gave people the impression that he was striding down a brilliant, sunlit Tao. Back in the tent, the usually steady Shen Xingyan began to mutter to himself repeatedly, "I can't get too carried away. I need to be steady. Although the future is full of light, I still need to reach it. Stay steady, don't mess up." With this thought, he was about to put away his star origin card and begin his next power of equilibrium training, but his movements suddenly paused. And he couldn't help but have a whimsical thought. Since primordial energy can be improved after reclaiming the clone's consciousness, what about martial skill progress? Can that also be improved? After all, the combat scenes just now already showed that the clone's martial skill level is not low. Thinking this, he couldn't help but place his star origin card back on his forehead. As the attribute panel appeared, his gaze locked onto the martial skill section. After seeing the result, his previously confident smile became even more brilliant. In his martial skill bar, the Dragon Elephant Fist, which was originally only 1% complete, had already reached 10%. And Gale Step, which was originally 6% complete, now showed 15%, which was clearly also due to the clone's return. I really didn't expect the clone technique to have such a miraculous effect, even improving my martial skill progress. So, when I have more clones in the future, won't it be like a group of myself helping to train martial skills? If that's the case, even if I don't use the comprehension skill on martial skills, the final improvement speed won't be much slower. That kind of scene is simply terrifying. Shen Xingyan murmured softly, unable to hide the smile on his face. It was fortunate that he was in the tent at this moment. If he were outside and others saw his expression, they would probably cast pitiful glances and offer sympathetic comfort. Shaking their heads and sighing, what a cruel twist of fate. He was such an excellent and inspiring role model in school. Now, because he awakened a life profession, not only has his life begun to degenerate, but he's even a bit mentally unstable now, laughing maniacally by himself. Chapter 176. Gradually accepting this unexpected pleasant surprise, Shen Xingyan slowly calmed his mind. Repeatedly admonishing himself to be steady, he began his power of equilibrium training without any slack. So much assistance made him even more determined in his goal, to take every step steadily and strive to survive until the end. After training the power of equilibrium for an hour, Shen Xingyan slowly stopped, and at this point, his mood had already returned to its usual calm. He took out his star origin card and checked the progress of his power of equilibrium after an hour of training. The progress displayed on the skill description was exactly as he expected, both showing 6.2% progress, which made him nod with great emotion. Although he had gotten used to the increasingly fast improvement speed of the equilibrium force, he still felt a touch of disbelief when he suddenly thought that training for more than 10 hours a day could increase his attributes by 4 points. Putting aside this admirable thought, Shen Xingyan then activated the Scarecrow protection, and his consciousness directly connected to the Star Origin card, entering the Star Origin world. Arriving in the planting space, Shen Xingyin, standing barefoot on the soil of the planting space, felt a sense of peace at this moment. He was very clear about drinking water, remembering its source. All of his various encounters in the real world were, without exception, bestowed by this land, which was his greatest reliance. Afterward, Shen Xingyin, with a relaxed expression, checked the growth of the crop and nodded slightly when he found no problems. Although he had known early on that under the leadership of his capable general, Wang Kai, the farmland would certainly not have any major problems. However, he still performed the previous action, simply because he wanted to feel this farmland, which had brought him so much hope, up close, and at the same time he felt grateful. After serving the farmland with Wang Kai and the others for a while, Shen Xingyin saw that the cool-down time for his innate skill had completed, so he didn't hesitate. He took Wang Kai to the side of the farmland and began to chant softly. At this moment, Wang Kai, who was following his master, saw his master make this familiar movement again. Knowing what was about to happen, he also happily shook his little skeleton head gently. His skeletal eye sockets were also fixed on the patch of land in front of his master, waiting for the appearance of his new little brothers. The scene that followed was just as Wang Kai had anticipated. 6 strong little brothers appeared in front of his master. After completing the spell, Shen Xingyin also noticed Wang Kai's excited emotions. He couldn't help but chuckle and shake his head, teasing Wang Kai. It seems our Wang Kai wants to expand the skeleton army more than I do. Not bad, a soldier who doesn't want to be a general isn't a good soldier, and a skeleton who doesn't want to be a skeleton general isn't a good Wang Kai. As Shen Xingyin spoke, he gently pressed Wang Kai's straw-hatted little skeleton head. Afterward, he didn't linger there, but directly returned to the real world and continued his training. The peaceful and comfortable environment of the planting space was certainly alluring, but improving himself was what he pursued. Thus, maintaining his equilibrium force training, Shen Xingyin continued until evening, during which Chu Wai, who had returned from outside, also came over for a visit. The two briefly discussed the strange events that had recently occurred, which naturally included the benevolent person's act of scattering money. Shen Xingyin also intentionally or unintentionally, through hearsay, roughly explained the surrounding terrain and the distribution of disasters to Chu Wai. He particularly emphasized the more distant area where the white ape resided, so that Chu Wai's team could have a clear understanding. Chu Wai naturally listened to Shen Xingyin's words obediently. After all, after so many years at school, the two had already developed an unspoken understanding of which tone of voice indicated words that needed special attention. After Chu Wai left, despite feeling somewhat tired, Shen Xingyin still chose to continue training. After all, the 6.2% progress increase every hour was tempting him, and he also needed to wait for the clone technique skills cooldown. Now that he knew the marvel of the clone technique, he naturally wanted to make the most of every skill cast. Thus, he continued to train until 2 a.m. before slowly stopping his movements. Just emerging from his training state, he felt a tidal wave of sleepiness and depleted physical strength rapidly assault him, as if they were all protesting. At this moment, although he felt little time had passed consciously, his body's fatigue was very real. After briefly checking the progress of his equilibrium force and seeing that it had reached 49.9%, a sense of accomplishment washed over him. At this rate of improvement, I only need to train a little tomorrow to raise my equilibrium force to level 8. As Shen Xingyin thought this with satisfaction, he quickly ate something to restore his physical strength. After cheering himself up a bit, he directly cast the clone technique. Looking at the 4th clone in front of him, Shen Xingyin didn't have the time to wait for him to slowly walk out. Considering it was late at night and there was almost no one outside, he wasn't afraid of teleporting to a place where people might be. He put down the array token for entering and exiting the safety zone. This item served as both a pass and a record, and he didn't want anyone to know that he had left the safety zone in the middle of the night. Holding the 4th clone in his palm like a small pendant, and after activating the Scarecrow's safety shield, Shen Xingyin's mind stirred, and he instantly teleported to a secluded spot outside the safety zone. After placing the clone down, he waited another 10 seconds. Seeing that the teleportation skill had cooled down, he used it again to return to his tent inside the safety zone. In just one round trip, he only used 20 seconds, and the efficiency was indeed incredibly high. At this moment, Shen Xingyan didn't bother to marvel at these things. Severely exhausted, he lay down directly and connected his consciousness to the star origin world. After appearing in the planting space, he didn't bother to greet Wang Kai and the others much. He directly entered the origin energy cultivation state at his usual spot and instantly fell into a deep sleep. At this moment, under the 10x speed origin energy cultivation, the transparent small particles and light green small particles, which were more than twice as dense as before, surged frantically towards the sleeping Shen Xingyan. If Shen Xingyan were to check the primordial energy column in his attribute panel at this moment, he would find that the numbers after the decimal point would change every so often, with a speed that was several times faster than before. The light green small particles, moreover, directly acted on his body in the real world through Shen Xingyan's sleeping consciousness, repairing his body's potential, which had already begun to be overdrawn. Due to the mutated crop continuously outputting light green small particles, Shen Xingyan's physical potential not only recovered effectively, but also became even deeper than before. Chapter 177. In the star origin world, within the planting space, Shen Xingyan slowly woke up from his sleep after 6 hours of origin energy cultivation. At this moment, as he slowly opened his eyes, he felt the energy that had been accelerated and restored by the star origin world, and he felt much more refreshed. It's still more comfortable to sleep in the planting space, Shen Xingyan murmured softly, then sat up lazily. Wang Kai, who had been resting like his master, also sat up, imitating him. If it were anyone else waking up to find a skeleton lying next to them, they would likely be startled and quickly distance themselves. But Shen Xingyan's face showed a gentle smile as he lightly patted Wang Kai's shoulder. His clear gaze directed towards the vast farmland before him, and the little skeletons leisurely working. Unknowingly, I already have over 70 little skeletons. I'm not far from 100-person skeleton troop. Commanding so many little skeletons is quite an exhausting task. Wang Kai, you've worked hard. Otherwise, I would have to expend a lot of energy on this, Shen Xingyan said softly, patting Wang Kai with a smile. He greatly admired Wang Kai's talent, and Wang Kai was the first little skeleton to follow him, holding a significant place in his consciousness. Shen Xingyan carefully observed Wang Kai, noting its increasingly strong bones and more natural movements. He couldn't help but recall the scene a month ago when he first summoned him. At that time, Wang Kai's first impression was that he could fall apart at any moment. Compared to him now, he had completely changed. I really didn't expect that after a month of development, the little skeleton would turn out like this, growing just like me. Shen Xingyan, whose lips curved into an unconscious smile, was about to stand up when he suddenly heard a prompt from the star origin world. Ding tilde detected that your primal energy factor has reached 1 point. Your primordial energy limit has automatically increased by 1 point. Hearing this prompt, Shen Xingyan was slightly stunned, then a look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. However, amidst this joy, he couldn't help but ask in confusion. It hasn't been long since my primal energy factor last reached 1 point, so why has it reached 1 point again? This is much earlier than my calculated cultivate time. What's the reason? Shen Xingyan subconsciously opened his attribute panel and checked his current panel attributes. He saw that the primordial energy attribute bar indeed displayed 75/75, and the primal energy factor displayed after it was already around 0.2. This unprovoked increase made him feel puzzled. This isn't right, based on the previous calculation of a 0. 1 primal energy factor increase every 10 hours, I only cultivated for 6 hours, yet I increased my primordial energy and also gained 0.2 primal energy factor. This is too abnormal. Has my cultivate speed increased again? and by a large margin, but this magnitude is indeed somewhat beyond the normal range. It seems that, when I perform origin energy cultivation tonight, I need to observe the specific situation to see what the exact cause is. Although the increase in primordial energy was certainly gratifying, understanding the reason behind it was crucial for future cultivate, which Shen Xingyan couldn't help but take seriously. Shen Xingyan thought this in his heart, but temporarily put the idea aside. He would explore everything during cultivate at night, as he still had many things to do next. Afterward, he took Wang Kai, Leif, and Lycan for a slow walk around the farmland. Inspecting his farmland territory and expressing his appreciation and encouragement to the little skeletons who were working. Now my skeleton labor force has a surplus, which is a good thing. And when the strawberries are harvested around 6 o'clock this afternoon, my professional rank should, without surprise, increase to rank 20, allowing me to start planting rank 4 crops. Rank 4 crops will certainly require more labor, especially after using professional skills. The demand for labor will greatly increase then, and the surplus labor will find its use. Due to the implementation of the wool shearing plan, the farmland will not be entirely planted with rank 4 crops at once after leveling up. Basically, an additional acre of rank 4 farmland will be added every day. In this way, the farmland's labor demand will only increase slowly, and there will be new little skeletons every day. Without new farmland additions, it can completely handle all stages of farmland labor. Shen Xingyan calculated this in his mind, and a confident smile simultaneously flashed across his face. He held a very optimistic attitude towards future farmland labor. After all, the improvement of his talent skill had made his confidence even more abundant. After greeting Wang Kai and the others, Shen Xingyan directly disappeared from the planting space and returned to the real world. Opening his eyes in the safety zone tent, Shen Xingyan first carefully checked the subtle traces around him to confirm that no one had entered his tent during his rest. Only then did he feel relieved. Although he had the protection of the scarecrow, his safety issues had already been resolved. But he understood the principle that a gentleman does not stand under a crumbling wall. Being able to detect danger in advance is always better than reacting later. Feeling at ease, Shen Xingyan ate something and went outside the tent to move around. Looking at the sparse crowd in the safety zone again, he couldn't help but sigh. I really envy them being able to freely kill disasters outside and face the controllable dangers around them. But I can only arrange for my clone to kill outside, while my main body quietly stays in the safety zone, occasionally watching combat footage through a perspective. This feeling is too unreal. Realizing that this thought was somewhat hateful, Shen Xingyan quickly stopped his wild thoughts, relaxed his mind slightly in the safety zone, and then returned to the tent to begin his training for the day. Compared to fighting in the outside world, I still prefer this feeling of progressing every moment, especially since the current training offers such a significant improvement that I simply can't give it up. Shen Xingyan mumbled softly as he trained. According to my calculations, I can raise my equilibrium force to rank 8 this afternoon, which will be another 4 attribute points increase. Calculating it this way, gaining 4 attribute points in one day of training is something no one could resist. Chapter 178. Shen Xingyan continued to train until 12 p.m. before slowly stopping his movements. After more than 3 hours of training, Shen Xingyan had already increased the total progress of the power of balance from the previous 49.9% to 71.6%. With less than 30 points of progress remaining, he only needed to train normally for less than 5 more hours to easily complete it. At that time, when the power of balances level is raised to 8, he will also receive another 4 permanent attribute points. And this is only under conventional circumstances. With his unconventional methods, increasing progress is simply effortless for him. One must know that his comprehension skill is not to be underestimated. Under the state of insight, the terrifying extent of the power of balances increase cannot be reasoned with common sense. those 30 points of progress would probably not even take him an hour. Shen Xingyin was naturally aware of this, so he was not in a hurry at all. After checking his skill progress, he looked at the clone technique, which had already finished cooling down, and immediately cast it without hesitation. Now possessing 22 points of primordial energy, he summoned his current strongest clone, Assassin 6, with all attributes at 11 points. Although 11 points in all attributes might seem insignificant to other professions, for Shen Xingyin, it marked an important step in his rapid growth, and he was very pleased about it. After all, where there's one, there's two. Now it's a clone with 11 points in all attributes. Who knows, perhaps a few zeros will be added after the 11 in the future. As for the naming of the clones, Shen Xingyin did not replace the subsequent clones upwards, just because Clone 1 had dissipated. After all, in his opinion, although Assassin 1 had disappeared, as a clone that contributed to killing the disaster, he felt it was very necessary to preserve its title, to commemorate it emotionally. Afterward, Shen Xingyin held the miniaturized Assassin 5 in his hand and took out an primordial energy recovery potion to drink, recovering his consumed primordial energy. After waiting a few minutes, once his primordial energy had mostly recovered, he casually activated the Scarecrow's protective function. Then immediately used teleportation to teleport himself and his clone to Assassin 2, who was 1 kilometer away. Through the view from earlier, Shen Xingyin noticed that there were no other figures around Assassin 2, meaning the risk of exposure was relatively lower. After completing the teleportation and standing still, Shen Xingyin let the two clones hunt on their own. While he waited for the teleportation skill to cool down, and at the same time, he carefully observed the surrounding environment. Shen Xingyin quietly felt the unique scenery around him, experiencing the novelty unique to the extraterritorial world. He gently stroked the towering giant tree beside him, sighing inwardly. How wonderful it would be if there were no disasters surrounding us, to be able to freely work on this land. The plight of the peasant professional would not be like this now. However, just as he was feeling a bit emotional, he suddenly saw a huge eagle head abruptly appear before his eyes. Its speed was so fast that Shen Xingyin was caught off guard. "Oh no!" Shen Xingyin couldn't help but exclaim, instinctively narrowing his eyes, his body flashing to the side, while frantically urging the teleportation skill in his mind. The scene that followed, however, slowly calmed his tense emotions. At this moment, the huge desert eagle in front of him seemed to have lost its way, frantically circling around him, its speed so fast that it seemed to create a small whirlwind. At this moment, Shen Xingyin, who was in the center of the whirlwind, realized, upon seeing this scene, that he had his scarecrow with him and knew it was working. "Luckily, I activated the scarecrow's protective function before coming, otherwise, I would have really capsized in the ditch this time." While he was realizing this, his teleportation skill had also finished cooling down, and he, who was constantly urging the teleportation skill in his mind, instantly disappeared from the center of the vortex, returning to the tent. Only the desert eagle, dizzy from spinning, remained in place, screeching at the sky. Phew, that was close. It seems appearing in the extraterritorial world in my true form is indeed very dangerous. I've truly witnessed it this time. I really owe it to the scarecrow. Shen Xingyin, inside the tent, took out the scarecrow and sighed softly. At the same time, after checking it, he found that the primordial energy in the scarecrow item, which could originally support dozens of hours, was now almost depleted. Shen Xingyin was not surprised by this. After all, the primordial energy consumed for daily protection and combat protection would certainly be different. Seeing this, he temporarily put aside the matter of the desert eagle and quickly channeled some of his recently recovered primordial energy into it, ensuring his protective capabilities. At the same time, he continued to take primordial energy recovery potions, preparing for the upcoming use of the comprehension skill. After waiting a few minutes, Shen Xingyin saw that his primordial energy had mostly recovered, and the scarecrow had also completed its basic recharge. He then immediately began training the power of balance. He trained until nearly 3 o'clock in the afternoon, raising the progress of the power of balance to 90% before Shen Xingyan finally stopped. Opening his attribute panel, he saw 22/22 displayed under the primordial energy section and the comprehension skill, which had just finished cooling down. Shen Xingyan instantly activated it. The further increase in primordial energy raised Shen Xingyan's insight value to 19 points in the insight state, allowing him to further improve his understanding of the transparent figure's movements in his mind. However, shortly after this state of enlightenment began, Shen Xingyan, who was training the power of balance, suddenly felt an exceptionally comfortable sensation wash over him. Knowing that this was a sign of a skill upgrade, he did not stop his movements but continued to train. It wasn't until the 1-hour insight period ended that Shen Xingyan reluctantly stopped his movements. With a thought, he took out his star origin card to check his skills and attributes. Power of balance level 8. Passive, 4 fixed attributes plus 8 active. Consumes 16 points of primordial energy. Activates equilibrium force. Can temporarily transfer 16 attribute points to a designated attribute. Lasts for 2 minutes. Cooldown 10 minutes. Current progress, 26% strength, 22 points agility, 22 points constitution, 23 points spirit. 18 points looking at the upgrade description of the power of balance and the increase in his own attributes. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but chuckle. Although he had already calculated it before, he still felt a little excited when the upgrade actually happened. Chapter 179. As Shen Xingyan watched the rank of his power of balance increase, he felt a slight excitement. But compared to the uncontrollable feeling he used to have, this time it was much milder. After all, he had already anticipated the current situation, and he had experienced this kind of improvement many times recently, so his emotions were no longer greatly affected. He then focused his attention on the skill progress, which had already reached 26%. He had a faint premonition about this before, but seeing the predicted result appear in reality, he couldn't help but feel a slight sigh of amazement, followed by a sense of relief. Indeed, the 8th rank power of balance still maintains the same improvement rate as before. The remaining 10% progress from when it was 7th rank, plus the 26% progress now displayed, means that in this 1 hour of insight training, I have increased my progress by a full 36%. Compared to last time, it increased by another 4%, and this is merely a chain reaction after a 1-point increase in primordial energy. Although I had thought about the possibility of a 1-point increase in primordial energy leading to a 4% progress increase, I didn't expect that the skill, after being raised to 8th rank, would be completely unaffected by this. If this is the case, then the progress of each hour of training will likely see a huge increase, probably reaching about 7%. What a magical improvement rate. However, I hope this progress improvement rate continues. Shen Xingyan, feeling somewhat relieved by this result, couldn't help but quietly anticipate. He then took a short break, replenished some energy, and continued to train the power of balance after gaining insight. During the training process, his movements, refined through multiple insights, appeared increasingly profound. Almost like 2 different skills, compared to when he first acquired the power of balance. Shen Xingyan, being in the midst of it, felt it the most deeply. The increasingly smooth and intuitive feeling fueled his motivation to train even more. Time advanced rapidly, without giving any chance for retention. After training for a full 2 hours, Shen Xingyan also stopped his movements. He quickly took out his star origin card to check the current progress of the power of balance, finding that its total progress had reached 40.2%. After a quick calculation, he realized that its improvement rate was exactly as he had expected, an increase of 7.1% per hour. Counting that 1 hour of insight, I now only need to train for 10 hours to gain 4 attribute points, which is truly unbelievable. Upon reaching this conclusion, Shen Xingyan couldn't help but sigh with emotion, and his heart surged with excitement. He then calmed his emotions slightly, activated the scarecrow's protective function, and connected his consciousness to the star origin card, directly entering the planting space. Looking at the talent skill in his attribute panel that had finished cooling down, Shen Xingyan didn't hesitate and activated it directly. A short while later, 6 sturdy little skeletons stood before him. Seeing this, he nodded slightly, then looked around. The total number of his little skeletons had reached 81. After handing the new little skeletons over to Wang Kai, Shen Xingyan did not return to the real world. After all, according to his previous calculations, 6:30 p.m. was a relatively suitable time to harvest strawberries, and now it was only a little over 10 minutes until that time. The safety of the real world also made it unnecessary for him to go back and check. So he simply found a place to lie down, quietly waiting for the strawberry harvest time to arrive. At the same time, he began to recall the day's encounters, summarizing the problems that existed in his actions. This operation was still too reckless, and I went too deep behind enemy lines. Not stable, far too unstable. It's also my fault for being too presumptuous before, thinking that with the teleportation skill, I could guarantee my life would be safe. But today's incident served as a wake-up call for me. Although I have various miraculous methods, everything is based on my own strength being sufficiently powerful. And under Desert Eagle's rapid speed today, I didn't even have time to react. This time I was lucky to have protective items, otherwise, with Desert Eagle's normal attack values, my 230 health points in the real world would probably only withstand 2 hits. Its 3rd hit could kill me. If I encounter a being that can kill me in 1 blow in the future, it won't give me any chance to escape. Moreover, from today's incident, it can be seen that the 10-second cooldown of the teleportation skill can indeed lead to unforeseen circumstances at times. The extraterritorial world is still too dangerous. I need to be more careful in the future. However, Shen Xingyan, who was pondering at this moment, did not know that his ability to encounter this incident had both accidental and inevitable factors. With the nourishment of the pale green particles during this period, while his own potential was increasing, the life aura he invisibly emitted was also simultaneously improving, and those outward life auras were easily detected by those disasters with keen senses. At this moment, in the eyes of those extraterritorial world disasters, he was simply a walking tonic. And even for those disasters who were not very sensitive to auras, his presence was extremely conspicuous. And this is why Assassin 2 Clone fought for so long without seeing Desert Eagle's presence, while Shen Xingyan was attacked just seconds after arriving there. While Shen Xingyan was lost in thought, summarizing, the time slowly reached 6:30 p.m. Seeing this, Shen Xingyan, who had repeatedly cautioned himself to be more cautious in the future, slowly stood up, and the novice staff, which had no durability, naturally appeared in his hand. Wang Kai and the other little skeletons also noticed their master's actions, and under Wang Kai's distribution, each little skeleton quickly went to its designated position. Shen Xingyan walked to the acre of strawberry farmland that was about to ripen. He felt a stir of emotion, being on the verge of crossing a new threshold. He slightly slowed his thoughts, locked onto all the farmlands, and with a thought, activated his professional skill. Ding tilde, it is detected that you are casting a professional skill on some crops that are about to ripen. The casting of this skill may fail for these crops. Do you wish to continue? As primordial energy gathered on the novice staff, the familiar prompt from Star Origin arrived as expected. Seeing this, Shen Xingyan gently exhaled and directly clicked to continue. I hope my luck attribute can continue to play its part this time. Shen Xingyan murmured softly. Chapter 180. As Shen Xingyan confirmed, the primordial energy from his staff instantly covered all the farmlands before him. Simultaneously, the 79 points of primordial energy on his attribute panel plummeted by 65 points, leaving only 14 points remaining. Seeing this, Shen Xingyan, after a period of anticipation, slowly squatted down to carefully examine the changes in the strawberry plants before him. while also waiting for the star origin skill prompt to appear. My luck value in the real world today was a bit low. It should be made up for here, right? Surely, my luck can't be bad in both worlds today. In this somewhat expectant wait, Star Origin World, as always, presented the final answer a few seconds later. Congratulations, you have successfully cast a professional skill. Farmer Profession Experience +1. Looking at this simple yet sincere skill, prompt echoing in his ears, Shen Xingyan's previously depressed mood, caused by the Desert Eagle attack, instantly vanished, and his spirits brightened. I knew it, the luck attribute is still very reliable. Although my performance in the real world today was a bit subpar, as the old saying goes, even a tiger nods off sometimes. An occasional dip in luck value is understandable, as long as it continues to perform well here. At worst, I'll just stay in the safety zone in the real world. After all, as a farmer, I'm not suited for combat. As Shen Xingyan thought this, he stood up and gently stretched his arms. A faint smile on his face, as he looked at the strawberry farmland undergoing changes beneath his feet, preparing for the upcoming harvest. Meanwhile, Wang Kai, though directing the labor allocation of the little skeletons, occasionally turned his little skeleton head towards his master, observing him with curiosity. At this moment, he saw his master facing the changing farmland with a joyful expression and immediately stood up straight. In his nascent consciousness, he only sensed that his master's somewhat gloomy mood upon arriving had brightened due to the changes in the farmland before them. This also caused him to feel an emotion called joy towards the changes in the farmland. He looked at the other little skeletons present with a surge of fighting spirit, transmitting the information he had understood to them. The first to react were naturally Lei Fu and Lai Kaiyan. They both looked at their master, and the consciousness that had just sprouted due to their names began to record this reaction of their master. Subsequently, the entire skeleton seemed to gain energy. The other little skeletons, after receiving the information from Captain Wenkai, also rose slightly from their previous, somewhat dejected postures. All the little skeletons seemed to have changed along with Shen Xingyan's change in attitude. Over the next dozen seconds, under the witness of Shen Xingyan and 81 little skeletons, all the crops in the farmland underwent pleasing changes. As the effect of skill progress plus 10% fully manifested across all farmlands, the changes in the crops slowly subsided. The familiar maintenance prompts began to appear rapidly above the farmland. The little skeletons, having experienced this phenomenon many times, were now completely unafraid and immediately began to work with practiced ease. Moreover, due to the surplus of labor, they now handled the current situation with even greater composure. On the other side, Shen Xingyan, already poised and ready, seeing the harvest prompt appear above the farmland, was like a wild horse, unbridled, freely harvesting the strawberry plants across this farmland. With the existence of his backpack space, his harvesting felt like picking up money, effortlessly and joyfully completing the harvest of the entire strawberry farmland. At a rapid harvesting speed, a few minutes later, this plot of strawberries completely disappeared from above the farmland. As the last strawberry plant was pulled up by the roots, and Shen Xingyan mentally placed it into his backpack space, the star origin harvest prompt simultaneously appeared before him. Congratulations! You have successfully planted 600 square meters of strawberries this time, with a harvest yield of 1,300 kilograms, earning 7,800 points of farmer profession experience. Shen Xingyan nodded with satisfaction at this harvest result. It was 20 kilograms more than the previous 1,280 kilograms, certainly a new breakthrough record. Then, with a thought, he summoned his attribute panel, and looking at the experience point section, which displayed 22,032/20,000, his lips couldn't help but curve into a smile. Soon, I'll be able to raise my professional skill rank to 20, unlocking a new function in Star Origin World, the ranch. Both my experience and financial accumulation will receive an additional boost. And I'll unlock a second professional skill, though I wonder if this one will undergo the same mutation as my first professional skill, becoming even more powerful. Shen Xingyan couldn't help but think with some anticipation, his gaze falling on the prompt to upgrade rank next to the experience points. He wanted to upgrade immediately, but he forcibly suppressed the urge to click directly. The priority now was to see what kind of breakthrough record reward there would be. After putting away his attribute panel, he slightly raised his head and looked at the Xingyuan sky, waiting for the breakthrough record prompt to appear. As Shen Xingyan waited, the Xingyuan breakthrough prompt, following the harvest prompt, slowly appeared before him and simultaneously echoed in his ears. Congratulations! You have once again broken your previously set record of 1280 kilograms of strawberries per moo, successfully reaching a yield of 1300 kilograms. You are rewarded with a special item, Time Reset. Xingyuan will make a server-wide announcement. Do you wish to disclose the information? Seeing another special item appear in this reward, Shen Xingyan showed no excitement this time. Each previous item had displayed extraordinary properties, making him no longer rashly speculate about the function of items, nor did he easily judge their value. Time Reset, another item I haven't heard of. I wonder what its function will be. Shen Xingyan looked at the reward in the prompt with a very calm expression. Although he didn't know the specific function of this unfamiliar item, simply looking at its name, anything related to time should be extraordinary. With this mind cultivation technique, Shen Xingyan, as usual, paid 100 silver coins to Star Origin World and successfully obtained the item. Looking at the item on his staff, which resembled an alarm clock, he thought, and checked the item's attributes. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more updates and new uploads.